Good morning, Fox 5 Live family. Thanks for watching our stream today, guys. Deadhead, good morning to you too. It is August 1st, first day of August. Can you believe it?
No.
I'm Molly Nevola, guys, here in the digital newsroom with intern Amber helping me out today. And you can see we already have a screen coming up. We already have something live. We're gonna take right here in Washington, D.C., guys. The mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser, is announcing a brand new transportation effort. They're launching 26 new eco-friendly Circulator buses, which are the buses that you see right there. The red bus, if you are from the DMV area or know anything about it, maybe you're no stranger to public transportation here. It's a big way that we all get around. It's something that I know I rely on a lot. Yeah. And this is really exciting. So we're going to kind of check in there live to see what she has to say. The mayor will be there introducing these new buses that are going to be brand new, using clean diesel technology, reducing harmful emissions. Just another move in the right direction towards eco-friendly stuff. Are you familiar with these buses? You take them?
I usually take the metro. So
okay.
I take the metro and then I take the bus. So I'm not really familiar at all with these buses, but they sound as if they're going to be a lot more friendly to the environment, which is good.
Friendly environment, which is good. They're cleaner because they're new and they're actually really nice. These particular buses, I'm sort of familiar with both public transport, the regular buses, and these particularly, which is a different kind of style, different routes that they take, and they have sort of a different price point and different things like that. But it's all part of the city. This is all part of a new announcement to basically make DC more sustainable, and this is going to be really exciting. So we're going to see her announce that. You can see they're already getting ready for that shot. We have our photographer there getting this all in live. So again, just want to thank you guys for joining us on our stream, guys. If you're watching on our website or YouTube, welcome to the show. We're going to be bringing you live sources throughout the afternoon, whatever we have coming in that might be interesting to note. We're going to have the White House press briefing later on in the afternoon. That is on camera again today. We've been sort of seeing that off and on camera. Today it's going to be back. Sarah Sanders leading that. Now, yesterday it was pretty late in the afternoon that the briefing came on, and we actually didn't take it on the show, but we'll have it today around 2 o'clock, hopefully, if it's not too late. I want to know about you guys, where you're watching from, and what you think, so feel free to chat along with us on this live stream. Like I mentioned, if you're just joining us, we're gearing up for this live event here in Washington. Our very own mayor is going to be announcing this new sustainable effort, this new sustainable string of DC Circulator buses that's coming to the district. So we're pretty excited for that. Take a second to take a live look right now at the White House. There we go on this sunny day, another gorgeous summer day, guys. And like I said, it is the 1st of August, so we're rolling right into the new month. How do you feel about that? It is crazy. I can't really believe it.
I can't believe it either, because it just felt like yesterday it was May, and then now it's just like, no, it's August.
No, exactly. Suddenly, things are flying by. And Amber, you've been interning here for the summer.
Yes.
What have you thought so far? I mean, you're going into like your last week and a half or so?
Yes.
Well, how do you feel going into your last week?
I just feel, I'm kind of surprised, because it's like, oh my gosh, it's almost over, and I'm just starting to get used to this. But I'm just like, oh, this has been a very interesting experience. I've learned a lot. I've seen a lot already, even though it's only been like about 3 months.
And we love having you in the newsroom, the digital newsroom here. We always love having intern Cam as well. You might see him; he'll be back next week, just helping out on the digital desk, guys. We string together a bunch of digital platforms for you guys to find what's happening, what's relevant, what's live and breaking. Whether it be Twitter, we use Facebook, everything, Instagram, and of course our live sources coming in right now from our photojournalist, Doug Wilkes. He's out there at the scene. So we're going to turn this up in just a second. They should be getting started, hopefully, shortly. And that will be next, guys. So stay with us throughout and chat along with us, and we'll shout you out on the show. We're going to go in full screen here and see what we can glean from this, and we'll come back into the news desk to talk to you guys. Thanks for watching.
Okay, guys, she's very close.
All right, guys, looks like the mayor is arriving now, and she's going to announce this new eco-friendly initiative for Washington, D.C., and we're getting this all in live. So enjoy, and let us know what you think. This should all be starting very shortly.
Good morning, everybody. Okay, we're all together. Okay, got it. Yes. Sticking up before you start. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Franklin Park, and I am delighted to be joined by Council Member Mary Che. Give Mary Che a big round of applause. And Paul Smith and Leif Dormshow and our entire DDOT team. Thank you, DDOT. I am very delighted to present to you some new buses that we have purchased, and we're going to talk a little bit about those buses, but also our great transit story at DDOT. It brings me pleasure and sadness to acknowledge the great work of our director of DDOT, but also wish him well in his next pursuits. Leif is going to be leaving us on August the 11th, but he has accomplished so much with a fantastic team at DDOT, and he's moving on to the private sector, but we couldn't be more thrilled with the work that he has done with us. I am also happy to name our interim leader at DDOT, Jeff Marudian, who serves as the deputy director at DDOT now, and we're very confident in Jeff's leadership as we search for DDOT's next director. So Jeff, congratulations. Where's Jeff? Jeff's behind me. Thanks, Jeff. So we are here today to celebrate an important investment in our public transit system. We are 40 new DC Circulator buses. So since the beginning of my term, my team and I have been committed to making our transit system safer and more reliable and more sustainable. Our new investment is helping us fulfill this commitment to Washingtonians and visitors who flock to the nation's capital every year. So let me say a couple of things about our new buses. First, we know that this investment in new vehicles will help us to improve the system's overall reliability. We're using them to replace the oldest vehicles in our fleet, many of which are reaching the end of their useful life. In a city as busy as ours, we know how important reliability and convenience are to make transit a realistic option. So DC Circulator is now serving over 5 million riders a year. And since 2005, we've seen the system expand from 2 routes to 6 routes with 136 stops. So the new buses that you see today and others that will be on the road later this year will help us continue to meet this growing demand. The second thing about the buses I want to mention is that they are equipped with the most advanced technology. Our team has ensured that each bus was manufactured to adapt to changing advancements in innovation. It will also be, these buses will be able to have future Wi-Fi services and future rear door boarding. Other vehicle additions include roof-mounted air conditioning, wider doors, lower to floor entrances, 32-inch wheelchair ramps, and USB ports for charging. And many of these additions are based on rider feedback, So I want to thank each and every one of our riders for helping us make these buses better. Lastly, I'm proud to say that our new Circulator buses are helping us to secure our spot as the sustainability capital. They are more environmentally friendly. They use clean diesel technology to drastically reduce emissions. Director Dormshaw is going to come up and tell you how we got here and how these buses are going to help us improve the system. And then we'll hear from our council member who chairs the Council's Committee on Transportation and the Environment, Mary Che. Leif?
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. This is a big day for DC Circulator, for DDOT, for the district. As Mayor Bowser mentioned, our team has been diligently working to purchase new DC Circulator buses. We had a few goals at the outset. We wanted to ensure the new vehicles had a long, useful life. The new vehicles needed to be dependable. They need to help us enhance the DC Circulator system's reliability. They needed to be environmentally friendly. And first and foremost, the buses needed to help us make the district as safe as possible for the traveling public. After canvassing the industry, viewing the top models from various manufacturers, talking to other cities and jurisdictions, multiple vendors, our team determined that the new Flyer buses were the ideal addition to our fleet. And I have told Mayor Bowser these buses will achieve all of those goals. But the buses are just one element of our enhanced transit services. Welcome, Chairman Evans.
I took Metro, I'm sorry, I'm late.
Take Circulator next time. Our contract with the current service operator expires next year in 2018, and we have already begun a request for proposals process to open up a competition to get the most suitable operator possible to manage the DC Circulator system going forward. And we're being supported in that new solicitation process by WMATA. Paul Wiedefeld and I have agreed to a timeline to transition where DDOT will take direct control over future contracts managing the DC Circulator to eliminate the middleman, but also to use WMATA as a advisor going forward. In addition to that, we are on the hunt for a new maintenance and storage facility. This system has grown immensely over the last 12 years, and we need the facilities and the fleet to support the service that the public wants and demands. DDOT is committed to ensuring that DC Circulator continues to effectively serve this region in the years to come. When I first joined the agency, Mayor Bowser told me providing safer, smarter transportation was a top priority. This investment today is a major step forward in that goal. But our work doesn't end here. We're committed to prioritizing transit delivery. I want to specifically call out members of our DDOT team that helped in this effort. Sam Zimbabwe, Sean Egan, Circe Torres, David Koch, Alistair Sampson, and also the man with the best name in the business, Cleveland. Many of them are already here today. Sam, we know, is getting some R&R, but he's with us in spirit. If you see any of the DDOT members today, please thank them. They put a lot of work into making sure that we got this procurement done the right way and that we have the benefit of these new vehicles today. I also want to thank Paul Smith and his team at New Flyer. Paul's the executive vice president who traveled all the way across the country to be here with us today, and we'll hear from him a little bit later. I wanted to thank Mayor Bowser for making transit a priority and fighting through the budget and our prioritization process to make sure that we had the resources to execute this important contract. And council members Che and Evans, who have been engaged partners from the earliest days of my tenure here at DDOT, asking tough questions, putting me through the paces at multiple performance and budget oversight hearings, but at the end of the day, making sure that the budgets that we adopt as a people have the resources to do the right things, and they've been great legislative partners in that regard. Last but not least, I do want to thank the customers of the DC Circulator system who have been patient through some of the last months where the equipment that we literally purchased in 2005, the legacy fleet, has been unreliable and has been difficult to achieve those high standards that we had expected. And with this new equipment, I think better days, brighter days, more reliable days are in front of us. So with that, I want to welcome Councilmember Che to the podium for some comments.
Well, thank you, everybody, and I want to join with Mayor Bowser and Councilmember Evans, too, and thank Director Dormsjo for his leadership. You know, in terms of the circulator, I hope people realize that it was not only the streetcar issues that he had to confront, but the circulator and others among them, and he took the same approach. He looked at them head on and straightforwardly and honestly and said, look, we need to make repairs. We need to have a method whereby we're providing a safe, reliable service to our customers, and we have to actually directly address the issue about repairs. And I'm very pleased that he's here today before he does depart so that we can have this event with the new circulator buses. These new circulator buses, as the mayor indicated, really combine two features, I think, about our government that we can all be proud of. First of all, innovation. Innovation and progress. These are buses that are state of the art, and the customers will enjoy them, and they will be safe buses. But also the environment. These buses will serve our sustainability goals, but also they will move us forward. And I think maybe probably one of the biggest orders in the nation for electric buses as we move in that direction as well. So since I have the Committee on Transportation and the Environment, it's like a double wonderful day for me, because both of our goals in transportation and the environment are extraordinarily well served by this batch of new buses. And again, I want to thank you, Director Dormsjo, for your leadership, and thank you, Mayor Bowser.
Councilmember Evans, and Paul, I'm going to have you come up last. Councilmember Evans has joined us, and he's been very focused on transit in Ward 2.
Thank you, Mayor. How are you? Great to see you. Thank you, and good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to Ward 2. We're right in Franklin Park, right in the heart of Ward 2. So it's great to have everyone here today. And I certainly want to recognize the best mayor in the entire country, Mayor Bowser. Thank you for being here today. And she is leader of the most dynamic city in America. My colleague on the council, the best council member from Ward 3, Mary Che. And my great friend who is leaving us, who has done he is the best Department of Transportation Director we have ever had. And I'm so sorry he's leaving to go on, but he has done a fabulous job. Leif, thank you. Thank you for all you've done. It's been a real pleasure working with you. So I'm glad to be here on the Circulator. You know, I was here when the first Circulator started. I sat down with George Washington and we said, we need to get these people around Washington. Seriously. So we invented the Circulator. That's a true story, though, the Circulator. And then we had this thing called the Blue Bus in Georgetown. We merged that with the Circulator. And then we came up with this whole transportation network around the city. And so, and it worked really well, still does, but it's fallen into a little bit of disrepair. So today, these new buses that we're bringing on, as Councilmember Che talked about, how great they are, energy efficient, et cetera, it's really going to make it a first-class system again. And I love the idea the district is taking it over. As you know, I'm chairman of the board of Metro. We got enough things to do at Metro. We don't need to be running the Circulator. So we're happy to move that over to the district, who will do it faster, better, more efficient, et cetera, and bring it back to being a first-class transportation system here in the District of Columbia. So, Mayor, it's great to be with you today. Thank you all for coming out, and we really look forward to, again, returning the Circulator to the greatness that it once had and will be again. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Now I would like to introduce Paul Smith, who is from New Flyer, and they manufactured our new buses. Paul?
Good morning, everybody. Probably should have wore a gray suit today. First of all, thanks to the DC DOT staff for making this order happen. We're extremely proud to be delivering more buses to Washington, D.C., as it's a showcase across America. New Flyer is extremely proud of our partnership with Washington, D.C., not only because we're committed to the district's zero emission goal, but also because through D.C., we're able to showcase to 50 states and around the world America's commitment to energy efficiency. Our New Flyer Excelsior buses will be in service starting this week. First, I'd like to praise Mayor Muriel Bowser and everyone in D.C. for recognizing the need to improve our environment and the residents' quality of life. Not only will these buses help significantly reduce air pollution and noise in the streets of D.C., but they'll also cost less to operate and maintain. New Flyer of America is committed to providing the best service to the D.C. Circulator. Our buses operate on clean diesel, offer better fuel capacity, and greater passenger comfort for this model on the market. New Flyer buses are also proudly built and sourced in America. Our company also creates thousands of jobs across the United States, and we are committed to a diverse and inclusive workforce. I'd also like to highlight that New Flyer of America buses are the most advanced buses available on the market today. These buses here, and I know that these words have been said, but it's a commitment from New Flyer. These buses here today that will roll out this week are designed and manufactured with the latest technology that are safe, reliable, durable, but most importantly, clean. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we can take a few questions on topic, and then I'll be available. Step up, gentlemen, for all the hard questions. Martin, you're first, and lady, step up.
Mayor,
yes, sir.
Martin DeCaro at WAMU. As you know, the Circulator's performance has been pretty poor lately. On-time performance was 52% in April. And it's not just a function of old buses. There are only 3 maintenance bays, up from 2. Many of the mechanics, actually none of them has ASC certification. How can you guarantee to the riding public that these new buses aren't going to suffer the same fate as the other buses?
Well, I think you heard Leif already, Martin, talk about the age of the buses and how many riders and miles that we put on them since 2005. They have outlived their most useful life, and it is really time to replace them. You also point out something that we are very engaged in, and that is finding a new facility so that we can not only increase the space, but have a better system of preventive maintenance at our maintenance facilities, and we're engaged in that process as we speak.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
Maybe Director Dormsjo would be in a position to answer it. I've been trying to get the most recent performance audit, the one that after they come out every 3 months. The most recent one I have is January. That said there were no mechanics with ASC certification, that they are making mistakes, they're not having the highest possible qualifications. Is that still the case today here in August?
Well, we're happy to release the next audit, as we have been doing since I commissioned these independent audits from the very beginning. I would also want to point out that a lot of the issues with the legacy fleet have to do with systems that we need third-party vendors and mechanics, repairmen to make interventions on. For instance, the air conditioning unit. So focusing just simply on the credentials of the mechanics that are employed by First Transit, I think kind of misses the entire situation. But that being said, we're working with First Transit and some of their resources in the region, principally at BWI Airport, to make sure that we have the right credentialed technicians. But ultimately, the process of going through an RFP that's truly competitive and has the benefit of a owner-controlled storage and maintenance facility is where we need to go. So, and that process, as I said, has begun formally, and WMATA is helping us get to a state where we have more direct control over our fleet.
All right, guys, that is it for our feed. I think he had to roll out of there early. We're happy to bring that to you guys. Live news about transportation in D.C. Pretty exciting. Didn't realize we were going to abruptly lose that. But I want to take you over now to a live event happening right now in Austin, Texas, guys. Not to miss this. Maybe you have heard about the Texas bathroom bill. It's caused quite a little bit of contention on both sides. Essentially, state lawmakers have been called into a special legislative session regarding a bill requiring transgender individuals in Texas to use public restrooms according to the gender that are on their birth certificates. That actually was a bill that failed in May. Now there's a big rally going on right now to talk about the impact of this and what it means, and then see where it goes from here in that legislative session. So let's go right down there to the rally so we don't miss it. This is live in Austin, Texas, guys, taking you down there. Check it out.
Repent or reap the whirlwind. We prophesy to you in the name of God, who is love, that the transgender people this bathroom bill schemes to demoralize and exclude. It harms them as much as it stands to harm you. We are here to implore you to shed all heavy-handed hostility and to put on the light yoke of compassion and the easy burden of kindness. We are here to urge you to look fully at the lives of our transgender neighbors. For if you were to take one page from their daily experience, you would find authenticity and courage with the power to save your soul. As we say in the United Church of Christ, God is still speaking, and God speaks today through the experience of transgender Texans saying, "Fear not. Be courageous enough to get to know your transgender neighbor so that you can live out the most important charge of your faith and love your neighbor as yourself." Thanks be to God.
Y'all, we're having church today. My name is Kimberly Shapley, and I am the mother of a transgender child. Our nation is filled with people hurting from these attacks by the radical religious politicians. The Bible repeatedly warns us about the Pharisees abusing their power, and here we are. The Pharisees consistently use Scripture as a means to control the behavior of those under the law and justify their horrible treatment of others. Rather than argue the Scripture, Jesus consistently challenges us to view situations through the lens of love. Through the lens of love, you would see men and women who were knit together in their mother's womb, created in the image of God, and they're being attacked by the religious politicians for the way the Lord designed them. Through the lens of love, you would see the pain of those abandoned by family and friends, the devastation felt by many of us, attacked with Scripture that was used to intentionally harm us. Through the lens of love, you would see the fear in the eyes of mothers like me, fighting for our transgender children against what feels like the whole world in times such as these. Our politicians currently are trying to force my little girl to use a men's restroom. Whose women and children are they trying to protect, really? There's an entire community of people who are hurting, and we are in desperate need of those who will stand in the gap and love us through the storm as these Pharisees rage on. The horrible example of Christianity being delivered by the radical extremists is turning people away from the church, and they are pushing them away from Jesus. Christians, your silence can be deafening to those being oppressed. We need you. Desperately, we need people who will love us. For the harvest is plentiful, Yet the laborers are few, and we need you. We need each other. Just as Dr. King said, in the end we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. If you do not understand what it means to be transgender, nor do you know the needs of the LGBTQ community, but you do understand the example of Jesus, and you understand that we were only told to love, you can reach out to Texas Impact. They will point you in the direction of the resources that you need and the people who need you. If you have not already done so, please visit texasimpact.org. Sign the Texas Impact letter that we have all signed, and I believe we have about 2,000 others that have signed with us. That letter just states that you are a person of faith, that you do not support this legislation, and that you will view this community through the lens of love.
I want to thank everyone for being a part of this event today. I want to have a couple of logistical announcements for all of our participants here. Again, denominational photos we want to take as soon as this breaks. The Methodists will be here on these steps. The Lutherans will go to the west steps. The Presbyterians to the east steps. The Episcopalians will gather in the shade of the trees. They're the one that bribed me enough to give them a shade. And all the other faith traditions, if you'll kind of gather here, then you can do a group picture together as well after the Methodists are done taking theirs. When you're done with your pictures, there will be Texas Impact persons with signs and their shirts to direct you to the lobby of the Robert Johnson Conference Center, where there will be lunch and some training for the lobbying that will take place today with legislatures. So please watch for them after the pictures. And for all of our media here today, all of our speakers will remain here. If you want to have follow-up questions, you can catch them individually and do that with them. I'd like to just close this with a word of prayer today. So the Lord be with you. Almighty God, we thank you for your presence this day as you stand beside us and walk with us in our life of faith. We thank you for the way in which so many have gathered to be able to speak to legislators today. We pray that you would give them ears to hear and that you would all give us hearts of compassion and understanding. All this we ask in the name of our Lord. Amen. Thank you all.
So some pretty, I guess we just lost that shot, guys. Some pretty moving testimony there from members of the community or relatives from of members of the transgender community down in Texas. And I thought it was really interesting to see we kind of cut in there a little bit late, but multiple religions represented, people holding signs saying, hey, you know, whatever form of Christian you are, or possibly not even any other religion, please don't use that religion to manipulate how my transgender individual that I know will be treated in general things like going to the bathroom. So pretty interesting to see religion connected.
I kind of like how they had that, because it can not only just go that term can not only just go with transgender. It can go with many things that people are they're using religion basically as a form of a weapon / form of manipulation. Transgender problem is just one of the many things that is a problem that people are using wrong, or that has been stereotypicalized, that like, I don't want to join you guys because you guys believe such and such, or you can't join us because you're such and such. It's just that, it's just one of the many examples that go on. But by reversing it and saying that love is one of the main important parts in certain religions, because I don't know all of them, but
and a lot were represented there, but we didn't see them all. But
yes, but I know at least there are some that believe that love is very important, because otherwise their purpose is to bring people in, but instead you're shooing people away. That's not what you're supposed to do.
Right, exactly. So that the correlation between religion and sort of this bill is quite interesting. We've seen this kind of in the past few weeks. We've had some sources, cameras go down there. So I've been kind of tracking this on a live show here. But guys, let us know what you think. Are you guys directly affected by any of this in some way, or possibly you're near to where this is all going down, where state lawmakers are dealing with this down in Texas after, again, like I mentioned, the legislation actually did not pass. It failed to pass in May. Now there's a new kind of special session being called into session to talk about this. Again, a transgender bathroom bill affecting the transgender community down in Texas. So interesting stuff there, guys. Let us know what you think if you've been watching and possibly you've been following the issue. Any comments that you have, let us know. But you guys are watching Fox 5 Live here. We're in the digital news desk, at the digital news desk here in Washington, D.C., guys, part of Fox 5 D.C. And I want to take you to a cool ceremony from yesterday, actually, guys. We didn't cover this on our show because it cut into some later hours, but if you missed it, it's pretty interesting. Really, really cool. President Trump actually awarded his first Medal of Honor to a Vietnam vet, an Army specialist, and this was a nice little ceremony kind of late in the day yesterday, late in the afternoon, so we didn't get to show it on the show. But I want to remind you, we're going to cut in with anything live and breaking. Of course, we get the White House press briefing coming up this afternoon. That is going to be on camera, so looking forward to that. And then anything else, any breaking news or live sources that we have, we'll throw it over there. So for now, check in to the ceremony from yesterday. President Trump awarding the Medal of Honor. This was at the White House yesterday late afternoon. Check it out.
Tom, his sons, Jamie and Matt, and many other members of his very large and beautiful family. We're also gratified to be joined by 8 previous Medal of Honor recipients. Now, Jim's name will stand forever alongside theirs in our history and in our hearts. I want to take a few minutes to tell you about Jim and how he earned this place among legends. Jim was raised in Bangor, Michigan. His father built their house from scratch and worked 40 years at a piano factory. Jim's dad taught him a simple but powerful lesson. Never do anything halfway. Always do your best. Jim took that lesson very much to heart. He played for 4 varsity sports in high school and 3 in college. In August of 1968, Jim was drafted into the Army. Within 6 months, he was trained as a medic and arrived in Vietnam. Right away, Jim poured all of himself into his duties, treating the sick and the wounded. Before long, all his fellow soldiers called him Doc. On May 13th, 1969, less than 3 months after he arrived, Jim was one of 89 men in Charlie Company to embark on a mission to secure a transportation route near Nanyuan. As Jim and his men jumped out of the helicopter, it quickly became clear that they were surrounded by enemy troops. Within minutes, 2 choppers were shot down, and one of his men was badly wounded in the middle of an open field. Jim did not hesitate. He blazed through 100 meters of enemy fire to carry the wounded and the soldier to safety. But this was only the first of many heroic deeds Jim would perform over the next 48 hours. After tending to the first wounded soldier, Jim joined a mission to advance toward the enemy. And advance they did. Before long, they were ambushed. Again, he ran into danger to rescue his men. As he cared for two soldiers, shrapnel from a rocket-propelled grenade slashed open the back of Jim's body from head to foot. Yet that terrible wound didn't stop Jim from pulling those two men to safety, nor did it stop him from answering the plea of another wounded comrade and carrying him to safety atop his own badly injured body. He was badly injured. And so it went, shot after shot, blast upon blast. As one of his comrades recalled, whoever called medic could immediately count on McCloughan. He's a brave guy. As day turned to dusk, nearly all of those who could and really had to make it back, they were finally within their night defensive position, except for one soldier whose plea Jim could not ignore. Again, Doc did not hesitate. He crawled through a rice paddy thick with steel rain. That means bullets all over the place. As soldiers watched him, they were sure that was the last time they would see Doc. They thought that was the end of their friend Jim. But after several minutes passed, Jim emerged from the smoke and fire carrying yet another soldier. He immediately badgered and fixed and worked, but he got the wounds fixed and lifted the soldier to a medevac helicopter. His lieutenant ordered Jim to get in too. Get in, he said, get in. But Jim refused. He said, you're going to need me here. As Jim now says, I would have rather died on the battlefield than know that men died because they did not have a medic. Over the next 24 hours, Jim fired at enemy soldiers, suffered a bullet wound to his arm, and continued to race into gunfire to save more and more lives. And yet, as night approached again, after nearly 2 days of no food, no water, and no rest, Jim volunteered to hold a blinking light in an open field to signal for a supply drop. He would not yield, he would not rest, he would not stop, and he would not flinch in the face of sure death and definite danger. Though he was thousands of miles from home, it was as if the strength and pride of our whole nation was beating inside of Jim's heart. Jim did what his father had taught him. He gave it his all, and then he just kept giving. In those 48 hours, Jim rescued 10 American soldiers and tended to countless others. He was one of 32 men who fought until the end. They held their ground against more than 2,000 enemy troops. Jim, I know I speak for every person here when I say that we are in awe of your actions and your bravery. But let me tell you one thing and one more story about Jim. On the second day of that bloody fight, Jim found a few soldiers and a fellow soldier who had been shot badly in the stomach. He knew the soldier wouldn't make it if he flung him on the back, so he lifted him up and carried him in his arms. As Jim was carrying the soldier, a thought flashed through his mind. Although Jim had always been very close to his father, he realized that it was not since he had been a young boy that he had told his dad those three very simple but beautiful words, I love you. In that moment, Jim offered up a prayer. He asked God, if you get me out of this hell on earth so I can tell my dad I love him, I'll be the best coach and the best father you could ever ask for. As he prayed, a great peace came over him. And if it was God's will for him to live, he'd keep his promise to God as soon as he had the chance. Jim made it out of that hell on earth. He made it. Here he is. And the first thing he did when he arrived back on American soil was to say those beautiful words, "I love you, Dad. I love you." Jim said those words over and over again for the next 22 years until the last time he saw his father, the night before his dad passed on. Today, I'd venture to say his dad is the proudest father in heaven. Jim fought with all of the love and courage in his soul. He was prepared to lay down his life so his brothers in arms could live theirs. With us today are 10 of the men who fought alongside Jim, and 5 of those he saved. To Bill, Randy, Mike, Joe, Kent, Robert, John, Charles, Michael, Orestes, thank you for your service and your sacrifice. Stand up wherever you may be. Where are you? Where are you? Thank you, fellas. That's great. For over 2 centuries, our brave men and women in uniform have overcome tyranny, fascism, communism, and every threat to our freedom. Every single threat they've overcome. And we've overcome these threats because of titans like Jim, whose spirit could never be conquered. That's what this award is, and Jim's life represents so well. America's unbreakable spirit. It's been 48 years since Jim's battle in Vietnam. He is now a husband, a father, and a grandfather. He coached high school, football, wrestling, and baseball for 38 years, just like he said he would. And he brought together every member he could find of his beloved Charlie Company. To many people in this room, Specialist 5 McCloughan has always been their friend Jim. To others, he's been coach. To those who bravely served with him in Vietnam, he's still called their doc. To his parents, Scotty and Margaret, both watching from heaven, he will always be their son. But today, 320 million grateful American hearts, Private McCloughan carries one immortal title, and that title is Hero. Specialist 5 McCloughan, we honor you, we salute you, and with God as your witness, we thank you for what you did for all of us. Now I would like the military aide to come forward and read the citation.
The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress, March 3, 1863, has awarded in the name of Congress the Medal of Honor to Private First Class James C. McCloughan, United States Army, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. Private First Class C. McCloughan distinguished himself by acts of gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty from May 13th through 15th, 1969, while serving as a combat medic with Charlie Company, 3rd Battalion, 21st Infantry, 196th Light Infantry Brigade, Americal Division. The company air assaulted into an area near Tam Kai and New Yon Hill. On May 13th, with complete disregard for his life, he ran 100 meters in an open field through heavy fire to rescue a comrade too injured to move and carried him to safety. That same day, 2nd Platoon was ordered to search the area near New Yon Hill when the platoon was ambushed by a large North Vietnamese army force and sustained heavy casualties. With complete disregard for his life and personal safety, Private First Class McCloughan led 2 Americans into the safety of a trench while being wounded by shrapnel from a rocket-propelled grenade. He ignored a direct order to stay back and braved an enemy assault while moving into the kill zone on 4 more occasions to extract wounded comrades. He treated the injured, prepared the evacuation, and though bleeding heavily from shrapnel wounds on his head and entire body, refused evacuation to safety in order to remain at the battle site with his fellow soldiers, who were heavily outnumbered by the North Vietnamese Army forces. On May 14th, the platoon was again ordered to move out towards New Yon Hill. Private First Class McCloughan was wounded a 2nd time by small arms fire and shrapnel from a rocket-propelled grenade while rendering aid to 2 soldiers in an open rice paddy. In the final phases of the attack, 2 companies from 2nd North Vietnamese Army Division and an element of 700 soldiers from a Viet Cong regiment descended upon Charlie Company's position on 3 sides. Private First Class McCloughan, again, with complete disregard for his life, went into the crossfire numerous times throughout the battle to extract the wounded soldiers, while also fighting the enemy. His relentless and courageous actions inspired and motivated his comrades to fight for their survival. When supplies ran low, Private First Class McCloughan volunteered to hold a blinking strobe light in an open area as a marker for a nighttime resupply drop. He remained steadfast while bullets landed all around him and rocket-propelled grenades flew over his prone, exposed body. During the morning darkness of May 15th, Private First Class McCloughan knocked out a rocket-propelled grenade position with a grenade, fought and eliminated enemy soldiers, treated numerous casualties, kept 2 critically wounded soldiers alive through the night, and organized the dead and wounded for evacuation at daylight. His timely and courageous actions were instrumental in saving the lives of his fellow soldiers. Private First Class McCloughan's personal heroism, professional competence, and devotion to duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of the military service and reflect great credit upon himself, the Americal Division, and the United States Army.
Bless us now, O Lord, as we depart our separate ways. May the memory of this occasion, may our participation here unite us all in compassion for service to all the members of our families, our military, our country. Strengthen us in faith and renew us in spirit and send us forth with your peace. Amen.
Jim, thank you. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless the United States of America. Thank you, Jim.
All right, guys, so just a little footage there from yesterday's ceremony. Very cool award given. I wanted to make sure I threw that in there in case you missed it. Yesterday it happened late afternoon. We took it to our other web platforms, but not here on the show. So wanted to bring you that. Very interesting stuff. Vietnam vet. Cool to see a ceremony like that. It's not every day that you see that from the president. So, guys, thanks so much for watching. Welcome to the show. We're Fox 5 Live here at the Fox 5 DC Digital News Desk, and we cover a lot of different platforms. So we're always looking at Twitter and Instagram and even Snapchat. There's a story that is crazy out of Philadelphia. This was late last night. It's a video on Snapchat that was captured by one of our sister stations' viewers, Fox 29 in Philly. One of their viewers sent this in, and it's very disturbing, but it's an interesting story, and I'm going to bring it to you now. So this is from Philadelphia, guys. Snapchat video that shows alcohol being forced down the throats of alligators. Here's what Fox Philly did with this story. Check it out.
Camera. In the video, a group of friends appear to be laughing it up while torturing a small alligator. Good evening. I'm Ian Page.
I'm Lucy Nolan. In that video, you can hear the guys saying they hoped it would make them famous. Well, now they're infamous. Our Chris O'Connell joins us live from the Pennsylvania SPCA in North Philadelphia. Chris.
Well, Lucy, one of our viewers was so disgusted over that video, they contacted us to try to get some answers. And we do want to warn some of our viewers about this video. Some find it disturbing, but it also has prompted a criminal investigation. The video posted on Snapchat and captured by one of our Fox 29 viewers shows alcohol being forced down the throat of two small alligators. Another clip shows the reptile being picked up by its tail with a burning cigarette shoved in its mouth.
We want to find out who these individuals are.
We showed the video to the Director of Law Enforcement for the SPCA, who has already launched an animal abuse investigation. A source tells Fox 29 the video was taken in a basement of a home in Bustleton where one of the guys lives. We're also told he's the son of a Philadelphia police detective. We're not showing you the guys' faces since they haven't been charged with any crimes yet.
It happens too often. There are too many times that we see this kind of cruelty, and you know that's part of the
Just for show?
Just for show.
The SPCA has seen a spike in animal cruelty cases simply because many times the incidents like these are posted on social media. One guy even started bragging about the Gator games, tweeting, "How are me and my friends not internet famous yet?" Well, guys, thanks to your video, consider it done. Now, the SPCA says the owner of that alligator and those who took part in the video could be facing misdemeanor charges, but under a new Pennsylvania stiffer state law, Lucy, I know you're familiar with, soon those next month, that could be felony charges for animal abuse cases.
Wow, so pretty crazy stuff coming out of Philly, guys. I know it was kind of disturbing, but Snapchat, man, you post something like that and it gets out there. Of course, that was very disturbing. Animal rights, you know, came to that.
Not to mention, I believe they may be babies or at the very least just very small alligators. And regardless, that's just animal abuse. And it's kind of sad that people are doing it these days, doing stuff like this and crazier things, like getting into fights or stuff like that just for views. Like, if that's all they want, then that's what they're going to get and more, with charges of like assault or in this case animal abuse.
Absolutely. It's amazing that a viewer kind of found that it was disturbing and sent it in so that now the world will know. And like he says in the package, you guys wanted to be famous? Well, now you are for a bad reason.
You want your fame, you want your likes and comments, here you go.
Exactly. Handing it to them.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're looking around for some more live news and sources for you. If anything breaks, we'll bring that to you live here on the show. Join us. Thanks for watching. Let us know where you're from and chat along with us. If you have any questions or comments, we're watching for the latest stuff. So Vice President Pence is over in Georgia. He's in Eastern Europe with his wife. He spoke earlier this morning, very, very early, like 7 a.m. or so, and I actually don't have the clip for you. I was hoping to bring that to you guys, but we don't actually have that one, but that's where he is. President Trump not making any live appearances that I know of right now for the day, but we do, like I said, we do have the White House press briefing later in the afternoon. But for now, we're going to be kind of searching around for more stuff. I know the big news of yesterday was Anthony Scaramucci out after 10 days on the job. That all broke kind of later into the afternoon. Our show was down, but the White House press briefing was not yet started. That was a later briefing yesterday, probably for that reason. I know she addressed some of that, of course, and I watched some of it.
Yes, it occurred. We found out around 2:30 p.m. saying that due to tweets saying that he was officially removed from. I heard some people say he resigned. I've heard that he was actually fired from Trump. Whichever is the case, I don't know. I don't know exactly which part of it, but he's no longer in office. He's no longer even fully part of the White House. So whatever occurred between the day he was hired and yesterday, it may have been discussed during the briefing, but it must have been something very interesting.
I heard both terms too. We're kind of hearing all those terms being thrown around: resigned, fired. Things happen. He is no longer communications director. A lot of it, possibly, people are thinking due to the scathing article that was written about him by the New Yorker journalist, and some of the words that he was using and the phrases and his writing, and it's interesting. You throwing around that term "clean slate" a lot too. So anyway, a lot of news in that political realm there. We'll probably hear more from Sarah Sanders at the briefing when we check that out. So guys, for now, I'll give you a live look at the Capitol Dome, and we'll be back with you in studio in a little bit. Thanks for watching. All right, guys, cutting in here for a very special video to share with you because this is so cute. Out of Tucson, Arizona. I don't know if anybody saw this. Why is it that dancing cops are so cute and so awesome? There's a dancing officer getting his groove on in Tucson, Arizona. This is what it looked like. Check it out.
Officer Woodson's going to do some point control.
Check it. I love it. I love it so much. There was a power outage in Tucson, so we decided to have a little fun with it, get his groove on the street, on the highway, it looks like, or some sort of fast freeway.
Yeah, it's a very fast.
Somebody taking a quick snapshot of that. That's it. I'm going to replay it so you guys can repeat it.
Here we go.
There he is, doing his thing.
Attention stations on.
All right, pick up your cones.
I don't know, but it makes people happy to see that.
I can see why, because most people, when they think of cops, they think of, police brutality, they're gonna hurt people because of the color of their skin, or they're just jerks. But no, they're still like nice human beings. And in fact, I was talking to one yesterday because I got into a long story short, my mom's car broke down, and we were stuck.
No.
We were stuck on this very fast speeding highway, and we had to call for help because they were going by so fast and not paying attention. There was multiple times they were very close to hitting our car. And so as soon as the police guy came, he was very calm, he was very cool. We had a casual conversation. I felt super comfortable around him. And we even had a selfie with him.
Aw, that is fun.
We got to ride in a car with him, in the cop car, and we got to have a selfie with him. So they're actually, some of them, there are some that bad, but some, they're still like down to earth, very friendly. In this case, very funny.
Totally funny, exactly. And it's totally fun to really see the human aspect, the humanizing of an officer. And that's what we just saw with that dancing guy.
So yeah,
I would have taken a selfie with him.
That was definitely a guy taking advantage of the circumstances that were around him.
Super cool. All right, guys, today we're going to go down to Atlanta, Georgia. Jeff Sessions is going to be speaking to a black law enforcement group. There's a ceremony happening right now. A little music looks like as an intro. Let's check it out right now. We'll get some more information for you and put that up. This is live Atlanta. Jeff Sessions to speak.
Of the free and the home of the brave, the brave.
The colors have been retired. You may have your seat. Thank you. Now, I would also ask that you please have your direction toward the stage as our national president
Mr. Perry Tarrant comes before us this morning or this afternoon and introduces for us our 84th Attorney General of the United States of America, Mr. Jefferson Sessions.
Good afternoon, Noble. Oh, come on, we can do better, a lot better. Good afternoon, Noble. Good afternoon. Thank you, appreciate it. Wow, a great crowd here this afternoon. Let me start off by saying that I had the opportunity to sit in one of the Attorney General's first meetings after being confirmed into that positions. Attorney General Jeff Sessions was sworn in as the 84th Attorney General of the United States in February. Prior to becoming the Attorney General, Mr. Sessions served as the United States Senator for Alabama since 1976. Mr. Sessions was born in Selma, Alabama, and grew up in Hobart. Growing up in the country, Mr. Sessions was instilled with certain core values: honesty, hard work, belief in God, and parental respect. He received his Juris Doctorate degree from the University of Alabama in 1973. Attorney General Sessions served in the United States Army Reserves from 1973 to 1986, ultimately attaining the rank of captain. Mr. Sessions was nominated by President Reagan in 1981 and confirmed by the Senate to serve as the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Alabama, a position he held for 12 years. Mr. Sessions was elected the Alabama Attorney General in 1995, serving as the state's chief legal officer until 1996, when he entered the United States Senate. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would please join me and welcome to the podium Attorney General Jeff Sessions.
Thank you all. It is so great to be with you, and thank you, Clarence, for your activities, and thank you, Perry, for hosting us today, along with Dwayne Crawford. Perry, it was good to have you in Washington and participate in some of the activities there, and particularly on our task force on reducing violent crime. It's a top priority for the department. I received the recommendations of the task force last week, and Perry, I think I've been pleased with what we've seen. We're going to work together to make some progress in this country. I truly am determined to do. Noble is celebrating its 41st year this year. September 1976 you started. That's about the same time I got started as a prosecutor in Alabama. So I know 41 years is a long time. Seems like yesterday, but you've nearly 60 chapters and represent 3,000 members. Noble started as a symposium to discuss issues like high crime rates in urban communities, improving community relationships with police, the hiring and promotion of black police officers. And I know we'll probably talk in a little bit about use of force and some of the policies that are important in that area when we after this luncheon. So these were important issues 41 years ago, and they're important today. I'm honored to speak to you today because the work you do at Noble plays an important role in our nation's public safety. And I just have to say, I've always understood the value of this organization. A number of my good friends have been members, and I have respected what you do, and will continue to look forward to working together. So I was a federal prosecutor for 14 years, and during that time I was blessed to partner every day with federal, state, and local law enforcement officers to protect the rights of all Americans. We might have been a small U.S. Attorney's Office. We were a small United States Attorney's Office, but we were able to, working with state and local officials and federal agents, to take tons of drugs off the streets, dismantling domestic and international fraud schemes, and prosecuted civil rights offenders to the fullest extent possible. So there's nothing I'm more proud of than what we accomplished in serving as United States Attorney, and I know that you feel pride and satisfaction in the work that you do every day. It is indeed noble work. It is a fact that you cannot have safety, comfort, and a thriving community without an effective police department. In addition, it's important that the police department reflect the societies that we are entrusted with protecting. You here at Noble have been a key to ensuring that this principle is not taken for granted or ignored. Unfortunately, our work and your work in many cases is becoming even more difficult and dangerous. That's because we're fighting a multi-front battle in our communities against violent crime, murder, and drug overdoses, all of which are on the rise. Do you know that we had 52,000 people in last year, 2015, die from drug overdoses in America? More than automobile accidents, more than we've ever seen before in the history of this country. And 2016, preliminary numbers say it'll be approximately 60,000. This is a tremendous threat to us. And we need to understand that we've never seen anything quite like this availability of drugs, low prices of drugs, and high purity of drugs, and these powerful new drugs like fentanyl that are resulting in so much death in our country. After decreasing for nearly 20 years, violent crime is making a comeback across America. In my opinion, having been in law enforcement, Attorney General of Alabama for 2 years, my opinion, observing it pretty closely, and his 20 years in the Senate Judiciary Committee, I believe a fundamental part of the decline in crime in America is smart policing. We have gotten better. Our people are better trained. They do make better judgments. They have, in many ways, gotten better. But the murder rate has begun to surge again. So in the last several years, 3 years or so, we've seen some significant declines after 20 years of significant increases after 30 years of decline. And it's something we need to ask ourselves, what's happening? What can we do to make our communities safer? The murder rate surged nearly 11% in just 1 year, 2015, the largest increase since 1968. That's the biggest increase we've seen since 1968. In fact, our murder rate has fallen by half over the last 20 or 30 years. But per capita homicide rates are up substantially in 27 of our 35 largest cities. As described by the media, Baltimore and Chicago have turned into killing fields. Law enforcement officers like you are on the front lines. You see these deaths and assaults up close. You don't have the luxury of looking away, changing the channel, or pretending the problem doesn't exist. As everyone here knows, too often, you not only don't get the credit you deserve, but are now in harm's way more than ever, and often get the blame you don't deserve. In fact, violence against police officers is on the rise around the country. Last year, 66 law enforcement officers were murdered in the line of duty, a huge increase of 61% compared to 2015. Preliminary data this year shows that officers' deaths for the first 6 months are up another 18%. So this includes the tragic shooting of Officer Mia Sotis Familia, a mother of 3, and a 12-year New York Police Department veteran who was assassinated earlier this month in New York City simply because she was on parole, on patrol, doing her job. She was sitting in her car when the assassin walked up and shot her at close range. And we know the violence against police has more than just an immediate effect. It is a catastrophe if more people decide not to make a career in law enforcement. More than ever, we need the best of the best joining our forces. And I do understand the departments are working extra hard now to get the qualified officers they'd like to have. As Officer Familia's at her funeral, NYPD Commissioner James O'Neill said it well. Cops are regular people who believe in the possibility of a safer world. That's why we run toward danger and not away from it. So you deserve the support and respect of every American, and I'm here today on behalf of President Trump and the Department of Justice to say thank you. I am proud to stand with you. The Department of Justice is proud to stand with you. We have your back. We are in this together. We cannot restore and improve public safety in our country if we are not united. We can all agree that you're safer on your rounds as you go to work every day when everyone respects law enforcement. The communities you serve are safer if people respect law enforcement. Just a few weeks ago, good news, Gallup released their annual poll, which showed that overall confidence in police had risen again to 57% this year. And that's a lot higher than the politicians, you can tell me. And I don't even want to tell you what the numbers are for Congress. That's good, though. It's one of the most trusted institutions in America, our law enforcement community. But we also know that the number doesn't tell us the whole story. Most of the country continues to hold police in high regard, but in that same poll, friends, only 30% of African Americans say they have confidence in the police. In the last 3 years, that number dropped by 5 points. This is a trend that we must reverse. This is important. We have to have good relationships with our communities, and we have to be able to be effective in preventing crime in every community, and lack of confidence in our police complicates that problem. We all know the cases of the last several years where in confrontations with police, lives have been cut short. Just as I'm committed to defending law enforcement who lawfully have to use deadly force to defend themselves while engaged in their work, I will also use the powers of the office I've been entrusted with to hold any officer responsible who violates the law. You know that all it takes is for one bad officer to destroy the reputations of so many who work every day to build good relationships in these communities and who serve with honor and distinction. So we cannot let the politicians, sometimes they do, run down police in communities that are suffering only to see crime spike in those communities. In the very neighborhoods that need proactive, community-based policing the most, we don't need to be telling police not to do their job in those communities. That helps no one. That protects no one. It tends to depress the morale of our police, and we absolutely must not abandon proven constitutional techniques and procedures like community-based policing. That is a key to reducing crime and positive community relationships when done correctly. I just returned from El Salvador last week, a country ravaged by transnational gangs like MS-13, where the murder rate is 20 times higher than here. That is what any country can look like if the rule of law breaks down. And that rule of law is what you represent every day on your beat. So we need you and we support you. President Trump is serious about supporting state and local law enforcement. 85% of all law officers are state and local. This is a concrete fact that all of us need to know, and particularly people in Washington. That is why he gave us 3 executive orders. One directs us to be supportive of the men and women in blue. We take that very seriously, and I'm determined to make sure that everyone in the Department of Justice knows the debt we owe you and the importance of our relationship being positive. A second executive order to the Department of Justice declared that our mission is to reduce crime in America. Well, that president can be pretty direct, pretty simple. Your job, Sessions, reduce crime in America, not let it go up. And I welcome that directive. And it's not going to be easy, but I think that we've learned so much over the last few years. If we build on those things, get even better, get even smarter, we cannot allow this crime rate to end up doubling the murder rate in America. Would that not be a tragedy of monumental proportion? And a third order requires us to dismantle transnational criminal organizations like MS-13. Those are our goals. We're getting after them. Carrying out the President's first order to support law enforcement helps us carry out the second order, that's reducing crime. It will not happen without you and us working together. So the Department of Justice has been working at your side to crack down on gun crimes and drugs. I know that Perry has been a strong advocate for taking and keeping guns out of the hands of criminals. And I agree with him that this will reduce violent crime overall. These are dangerous defendants, some of the most important defendants for the United States government to participate with our local law enforcement friends in going after. And they're the ones carrying guns around town. They get in an argument, and before you know it, somebody's dead. If they're not carrying guns, a lot less likely, those kind of things are likely to happen. It must be a top priority. And that's why in March, I issued a memo telling our prosecutors to prioritize criminals with guns. And since then, we've seen a 23% increase in the number of federal gun prosecutions. And as you know, the carrying of a firearm during the commission of a felony carries a 5-year sentence, mandatory sentence. And I think it's an effective tool to make our streets safer. And we've been able to do that, although we've got 12 positions in the Department of Justice in headquarters that require Senate confirmation. Only 2 have been qualified, and we've got 94 United States attorneys that are yet to be confirmed. So we have 0 U.S. attorneys confirmed at this time, but I think in the months to come we'll see progress there, although we'd like to see it faster. And everyone here knows that drug trafficking is an inherently dangerous business. If you want to collect a drug debt, you can't and don't file a lawsuit in court. You collect it by the barrel of a gun. If you want to reduce violent crime and homicides, then we must take on the epidemic of drug abuse in this country. We have to send a clear message that drugs are destroying lives. And most importantly, we've got to restore the understanding that heading down the path of drugs is a dead end, is destructive. Families, careers, college educations are all forfeited when people play around with drugs. And a good prevention program will help reduce crime, will help reduce drug abuse, help reduce the number of people we have to incarcerate. So this mission is important because it's not our privileged communities too often that suffer the most from crime and violence. Nothing is more damaging to a struggling community than high crime rates. The first and most important job of this government, of any government, is to protect the safety and rights of its citizens. The first civil right is the right to be alive. If we fail at this task, then every other government initiative loses importance. Schools are less effective in dangerous communities. Fewer businesses will open and succeed. Grocery stores disappear, and home values plummet. I remember being in the Martin Luther King area in Mobile a number of years ago when I was United States Attorney, and we had town hall meetings to listen to the people there. I called it. And people talked about crime and how they used to be able to play outside And you could see a neighborhood with many people who lived there all their lives, had nice homes, but I bet those homes were a half in value of what they'd been a few years before because people didn't want to live in that dangerous community. And it's sort of tragic in a real sense. There are a lot of bad things happen when crime gets out of control. So that's not right. Regardless of wealth or race, every American has a right to demand and live in a safe neighborhood. Every American deserves to live without the constant fear of violence into their lives. And so this whole concept of every neighborhood being safe and community-based policing was a big part of reducing crime for 20, 30 years in America. We can't back off that now. We need to get even better at it, more careful at it, making sure we're doing it in a lawful way that's not offending our friends and neighbors. And if we can do more and do it better, we know our mission depends on you, and you are America's first line of defense. Noble's motto is justice by action, a good motto indeed. Justice requires courageous men and women to stand up and do the right thing every day. Thank you for answering that call and for choosing to do this honorable work. You, more than perhaps any other law enforcement organization, represent crucial ambassadors to some of the communities that trust law enforcement the least. Thank you for your leadership and your dedication and your professionalism. I want to have a special and open relationship with Noble. I respect the work you do. I've watched it for many years and look forward to being partners with you. We have your back. You have our thanks. God bless you all.
Guys, that's Attorney General Jeff Sessions speaking at the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. It's their 41st annual training convention and exhibition in Atlanta, Georgia. That's what you just saw. This is all live video down in Atlanta. Checking in there. And we see Jeff Sessions speak from time to time. There's been some talk in the news of whether or not his relationship with President Trump is strained. So it's been interesting to see what's going to happen there. People are wondering if he's next out of the administration or what.
Especially considering we had, I'm sorry if I pronounce his name wrong, Scaramucci yesterday. I mean, he was only there for less than 11 days.
Right.
And then Trump fully supported him. He fully supported Trump. And then next thing you know, boom, kicked out. And as far as I know, little to no proper explanation. I mean, maybe they've already discussed the explanation, but it was none that I was informed of, at the very least.
There are some articles out there in question as to sort of some of the things he said behind closed doors that were then reported on, but there's definitely still a little bit of fog surrounding those reasons that I know journalists would like Sarah Sanders to clear up at these White House press briefings. Yeah. Speaking of that, we do have that later on this afternoon. Hopefully we'll get that on time. Let's go down now, though, to a live event down in Houston, guys. City leaders right now are voicing their concerns over a sanctuary city bill. It's called SB 4. We've been talking about it for a little while. This is in Austin, Texas, actually, rather not Houston. So let's go down there. Let's watch live as some of the leaders talk about this bill.
Our census numbers, they're using that as a projection for what would happen in Texas. Right, but empirically, that's all the data that we have. So I mean, I think it's a reasonable estimate that that could happen here. Yeah. Sure.
¿Cómo te sientes en este momento de saber que están luchando nuevamente con otra ley que pareciera ser que es una ley anti-inmigrante? Tú vienes de familia con inmigrantes, también ¿cómo sientes esta lucha?
Yo siento orgulloso que luché en el concejal y gané la mayoría de mis colegas para votar en favor de participar en la demanda. Mi mamá y mi papá eran inmigrantes, vinieron de México. Yo soy el más joven de 7. Todos mis hermanos y mi hermana nacieron aquí en los Estados Unidos. Todos están trabajando. Los hijos y las hijas de ellos están trabajando, están participando en esta economía, pero la cosa es que mi papá y mi mamá vinieron de México. Pero estamos luchando, estamos trabajando, estamos ayudando a esta economía y por eso yo estoy orgulloso que estoy luchando para estar seguro que vamos a ganar contra ese SB4 y por eso yo estoy aquí con todos que estamos aquí esta mañana.
¿Te duele ver que la gente, los políticos a veces no toman en cuenta el trabajo tan fuerte que hacen los inmigrantes?
Sí, por ejemplo, puedes salir aquí en las calles del centro. Los inmigrantes están trabajando en esos edificios, los inmigrantes están trabajando en el George R. Brown, están trabajando en el Hotel América, están trabajando en el Marquis, en los hoteles aquí en Houston. Son los inmigrantes. Y sin ellos, ¿cómo va a ser el día sin el inmigrante? Y por eso estamos aquí luchando para estar seguro que esta ley no se va a pasar comenzando en el 1 de septiembre. Y por eso otra vez estoy orgulloso que mis colegas, la mayoría, votamos para participar en la demanda contra SB4. Gracias.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to take a minute. From my mother's side, I'm first-generation immigrant. This is my land. From my father's side, I can trace my ancestors in Texas 5 generations. They have been in Texas since the 1700s. This is about racial profiling. This is about Texans. Donna Murphy is a PhD in urology. You would look at her, and that would be racial profiling. Laura Murillo is a PhD, and you would look at her and ask her for her documentation. This is about dignity. This is about respect. But this is about the Texas values that are not being adhered by our leaders. We are Texans. This is America. This is our land. SB4 is not good for Texas. It is not good for America. We are here all together representing. It is not an undocumented problem. This is our problem. This is your problem. And together we are going to fight against SB4. Perdón. A ver. De parte de mi madre, soy la primera generación aquí en los Estados Unidos. De parte de mi padre, mi familia ha estado aquí en Texas desde 5 generaciones, de 1700 en el estado de Texas. Este país es nuestro país. Y este problema de SB4 no es un problema solamente para las personas indocumentadas. No, es un problema de todos, porque Texas es una ciudad, un estado que representa diversas minorías. Tenemos personas como la señora Donna Murphy. Ella tiene un PhD. La señora Laura Murillo también, PhD. O sea, estamos educados. Y lo que significa SB4 contra nuestra comunidad es un insulto de nuestra gente, porque todos nosotros estamos representados y todos tenemos el riesgo de tener el perfil racial. Y no son los valores de América y esos no son los valores de Texas. I'm sorry, Ana Núñez, N-U-N-E-Z, Ana Núñez.
En ese sentido, también yo quería decir algunas palabras sobre ese problema. Lo vamos a hacer en español. Ese problema de SB4 nos afecta a todos, no solamente a los hispanos, también a los africanos, a los asiáticos, todas las personas que viven aquí en Houston, que son inmigrantes, van a ser afectadas a este problema. Entonces es muy importante que todos trabajamos juntos, todos, africanos, hispanos, porque es muy importante, eso nos va a afectar mucho. Entonces aquí voy a preguntar a todos los hermanos y hermanas hispanas que nos ayuden a nosotros, los africanos, a ser más activos en nuestras políticas, porque eso nos va a afectar a todos. Gracias.
Any other questions?
I have a question. The legislature is holding a special session, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Do you plan to mobilize in any way, like, for instance, over to Austin or trying to contact lawmakers?
All right, guys, that may be all that we have of that feed. Thanks for joining on with us. A live look down in Austin, Texas, where we were earlier for the transgender community bathroom bill rally. This, something a little bit different, more having to do with, obviously, immigrants and sanctuary cities, a topic we've been kind of seeing and talking about for months now. A lot of hot topics right now in Austin, Texas, today. So, guys, we're going to kind of be jumping around. We are in D.C. If you guys are just joining us here at the Fox 5 D.C. Digital News Desk, this is what it looks like right now live. There's the Capitol Dome on this sunny first day of August, guys.
Yes.
It's August 1st.
Nice and sunny.
It's Tuesday, and we are rocking and rolling our way in through the week. Thanks so much for joining on our stream. So we're going to be looking for more stuff coming out. Like I prefaced before, we have the White House press briefing coming up in a little bit, so we'll be eyeing that and anything else that sort of breaks. But for now, enjoy this live look, and we're going to look for some more stuff and bring it to you live so that you can stay ingrained in what's happening today. And if you guys have anything you want to talk about or any suggestions or questions or comments, leave them right there in the live chat. We want to chat with you. If you're interested in the show and we're on every day, you can click that red button that says subscribe so you can be part of our community here and get those alerts on your phone when we come up on your app and on the website and on YouTube here. So be part of us, guys, part of our channel, and we look forward to having you on. Take a moment, and we'll be back with you guys shortly with some other news. Thanks for watching, guys. Okay, guys, we're back in the newsroom here. Thanks so much for joining us on our stream. The big talk of the day and the biggest thing is this rally in Austin, Texas, guys, a protest over the transgender community bathroom bill that would prohibit transgender individuals from using the bathroom of their choice. Now, this is sort of a bill that has gone into a special legislative session for a vote, and there's a big sort of contention over it, people on either side. And interestingly, today, there was this really, really interesting rally with members from all different parts of religious communities, all different religions kind of gathering together and speaking their mind on this proposition here in Texas. I think it's quite a talker, pretty interesting topic, and I want to play that back out so we can remember what went on today. This was just moments ago, really in the last hour that this happened in Austin, Texas. Guys, you can see some of the signs people are holding. Just really interesting stuff to take in. So if you're at all interested in this topic, check it out here, guys. We're going to play this out just from, like I said, moments ago, and then we'll come back in with some more live cut-ins if anything breaks. And of course, if we do jump over to the White House press briefing, we'll bring you that live as it happens. So for now, guys, check out this protest about the transgender community bathroom bill in Austin, Texas from this morning.
Today, the love of neighbor brings us to intervene in the making of public policy for the good of all. I urge our Christian lawmakers, especially my fellow Presbyterians, to vote and act in obedience to the one who called everyone neighbor, even and especially us. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I begin in the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. My name is Muhammad Umar Ismail, and I am the Imam at the Nueces Mosque, just a couple of blocks from here. Among the 99 names of God, one is Al-Musawwir, which means the fashioner, the shaper. The Quran states God is the one who shapes you in the wombs however he pleases. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, God does not look at your faces and bodies, rather he looks at your hearts and deeds. A disciple of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, 1400 years ago, was transgender, and he was a part of the community, just like everybody else. He was even welcome in the very home of the Prophet, peace be upon him. He would go in and out, just like a member of the family of the Prophet, peace be upon him. The Quran states, وَرَحْمَتِي وَسِعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ, that my mercy encompasses all, and all means all. Regardless of your gender or your sex, I call upon the governor of Texas and the legislature, enough is enough. Enough of the transphobia. Y'all means all. Thank you very much.
My name is Rabbi Mara Nathan. I am the rabbi at Temple Beth El in San Antonio. Today, according to the Jewish calendar, it is the 9th of Av, or Tisha B'Av, a day when we remember the destruction of our holy temple in Jerusalem. Why was God's temple destroyed? There are obvious historical causes, but from a religious and spiritual perspective, Jewish tradition sees this tragedy as the result of a community consumed with sinat chinam, or senseless hatred. It was a time when people went out of their way to make others suffer, to cause humiliation and harm. Because of this, God's holy temple could no longer stand. It is ironic yet quite apropos that we stand here today on Tisha B'Av because sinat chinam, senseless hatred, is being experienced again. We are witnessing a moment when leaders in our communities feel comfortable being horrible to other people, when our fellow citizens seem to lack compassion for their neighbors and their neighbors' children. Bathroom bills at their core are a manifestation of senseless hatred. They target transgender individuals and expose them to increased risk of bullying and other threats. Bathroom bills make vulnerable people, men, women, and children, more vulnerable, unable to comfortably and confidently live their private lives and attend to their private bodily functions. Studies show that 75% of transgender students feel unsafe in their school and often experience physical, verbal, and sexual abuse. This often results in them running away from home, with around 37% of homeless youth identifying as LGBTQ. Transgender adults also face discrimination in many places, including employment, healthcare, and social services. Yet this senseless hatred counters our interfaith community's emphasis on protecting our most vulnerable and treasuring the divine spark found in each human being. The first chapters of the book of Genesis teach that we are all created in the image of God, B'Tselem Elohim. Each human being is worthy of love and respect and equal protection under the law. As people of faith, we are required to build a world that reflects God's image, but intolerance, bigotry, fear, and hatred do not reflect the image of godliness we all aspire to attain. We are all created in the image of God, each unique, yet bonded by the sacred quality we each contain, and we must continue to resist the idea that we must fear those who are not like us. On this day, Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, we are commanded to reflect on the suffering that still occurs in our world as a result of sinat chinam, baseless hatred. Today, we are here to identify the bathroom bill as an act of baseless hatred and to call out the disrespect and humiliation that it will inflict on our fellow human beings. We must continue to stand up for equality and freedom for all Texans, regardless of our race, religion, sexual orientation, or gender identity. We cannot engage in baseless hatred by targeting the marginalized for imagined threats to public safety, for we are all created in the image of God. Thank you.
My name is Griff Martin, and I'm the pastor of First Baptist Church of Austin, and I'm here to say today that it is horrible to be misrepresented or misunderstood. We all deserve better than that. So I stand here today as a proud Baptist, one of about 5 million in Texas who claim Baptist, which is almost 20% of our state. And I'm confused because I keep hearing voices from inside this building which claim to represent me and a faith like mine. And they say that churches in Texas, Baptist churches, support these so-called bathroom bills, which makes me think they understand Baptist about as well as they understand transgender identity and bathroom politics. Because we as Baptists don't have a single voice. We are fiercely independent. It's very Texan of us. And we don't like people speaking for us, especially when they don't tell the truth. Because I am here as a Baptist pastor, the pastor of First Baptist Church of Austin, just a few blocks away, the church that Sam Houston helped start in order to speak truth to power in this city. And I am here to say, there are a lot of us that don't support this bathroom bill. There are a lot of us that are tired of fear and scapegoating driving politics in this state. We are ready. We are ready instead to see those we elect and those we trust to start leading this state with wisdom, with bravery, and with kindness. There are a lot of us concerned about the well-being of every Texan, of every one of God's beloved children, including God's transgender children. So don't be fooled by the lies and the hate being told inside. All of us Baptists don't think alike. And we are here today to make our voice heard, to say to our transgender siblings and friends and beloved community, you deserve better, and we will stand with you, because that's what Jesus would do. And because following Jesus is a very Baptist thing. And the Jesus that we Baptists know is the Jesus who loved everyone, who always sought out the marginalized, who sat down at the table with all people, who saw no boundaries, who never spoke of the other, but always spoke of the beloved. And that Jesus would be the first to stand with transgender Texans and proclaim his love for them. So may we stand with Jesus, and in doing so, stand with our transgender siblings, because that is very Baptist of us. Amen and amen.
I'm Reverend Diane McGehee. I'm an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church and senior pastor of Bering Memorial United Methodist in Houston, Texas, a reconciling congregation. I stand with and affirm the statements of my colleagues that all means all, and as a Christian, that the gospel of Jesus Christ welcomes all people to the table of God's abundance and grace as valued members of the community of faith, as valued members of the family of God. Those of us here gathered today from diverse local communities of faith stand united in our belief that we should all be free from laws that discriminate. The so-called bathroom bills are discriminatory, unjust, and will result in more fear, hate, and animosity, not love and cooperation. It will make our communities weaker, not stronger. Stigmatizing any member of our society is wrong, harmful, and threatens our democracy. History has proven it. My father, as a faith leader, marched with Martin Luther King Jr. in the 1960s to end this kind of discrimination. We had bathroom bills in the 1960s. They were wrong then, and they're wrong now. This is not who we are as faith leaders. citizens of the state of Texas, we are better than this. Enactment of this legislation would not only hurt our communities, but damage the partnership between members of the community of faith and our elected leadership. As elected officials, you are accountable to us for your decisions, just as we are accountable to you to respect and promote laws that are just and non-discriminatory. We need you to hear us when we ask you, when we tell you to vote no to this legislation. We are not interested in reenacting discriminatory bathroom laws. Learn from our history. And to our transgender brothers and sisters, I say to you on behalf of my entire congregation, you are not only welcome in this community, you are celebrated as beloved children of God and valued members of our community.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Dan DeLeon. I'm the senior pastor of Friends Congregational Church, United Church of Christ in College Station, Texas. I'm here with a contingent of faithful folk from the Brazos Valley who've traveled here today because we're worried about the Texas legislature. We know that our representatives are good, decent human beings who desire nothing more than to faithfully serve all Texans. And we know that you, our representatives, are people of faith. You remind us of this quite often. That's why we're worried about you. We're worried that you're walking down a path that is not true to who you are or who God meant for you to be. Apparently, you are considering the passage of a so-called bathroom bill that would demoralize our transgender and gender nonconforming neighbors in this state and exclude them from the public square. Apparently, you have allowed for ignorance about trans folk, which leads to fear of trans folk, to cloud your moral judgment. This is troubling. To legislate out of fear goes against the authenticity of your calling as a public servant. And we don't want you to make an ill-informed decision that would cause you to lose your soul. So, we're here to advocate for our transgender neighbors so that we all might be saved. You see, transgender people who make the hard decision to live out in the open according to their true gender identity and not by the gender assigned to them at birth, they exemplify authenticity and courage. Transgender Texans show more courage just leaving the house every day than many of us ever will. Our transgender neighbors who are made in God's likeness, made in the image of God, they show us that God is bigger than gender and that God is bigger than the assignments we give to gender. Transgender Texans remind us by their very lives that our God is an awesome God. They remind us by their daily walk of courage and truth that our God is bigger than any of our warrantless fears. They remind us today that excluding any of God's children from basic human dignity in the public square profanes the very name of God. And they remind us today that our God is bigger than this blasphemous bathroom bill. So, to the ones put in office to represent us and all Texans, we, people of faith from across Texas, we are here to deliver an urgent message to you: repent. Repent or reap the whirlwind. We prophesy to you in the name of God, who is love, that the transgender people this bathroom bill schemes to demoralize and exclude, it harms them as much as it stands to harm you. We are here to implore you to shed all heavy-handed hostility and to put on the light yoke of compassion and the easy burden of kindness. We are here to urge you to look fully at the lives of our transgender neighbors. For if you were to take one page from their daily experience, you would find authenticity and courage with the power to save your soul. As we say in the United Church of Christ, God is still speaking, and God speaks today through the experience of transgender Texans saying, "Fear not. Be courageous enough to get to know your transgender neighbor so that you can live out the most important charge of your faith and love your neighbor as yourself." Thanks be to God.
Y'all, we're having church today. My name is Kimberly Shapley, and I am the mother of a transgender child. Our nation is filled with people hurting from these attacks by the radical religious politicians. The Bible repeatedly warns us about the Pharisees abusing their power, and here we are. The Pharisees consistently use Scripture as a means to control the behavior of those under the law and justify their horrible treatment of others. Rather than argue the Scripture, Jesus consistently challenges us to view situations through the lens of love. Through the lens of love, you would see men and women who were knit together in their mother's womb, created in the image of God, and they're being attacked by the religious politicians for the way the Lord designed them. Through the lens of love, you would see the pain of those abandoned by family and friends, the devastation felt by many of us, attacked with Scripture that was used to intentionally harm us. Through the lens of love, you would see the fear in the eyes of mothers like me, fighting for our transgender children against what feels like the whole world in times such as these. Our politicians currently are trying to force my little girl to use a men's restroom. Whose women and children are they trying to protect, really? There's an entire community of people who are hurting, and we are in desperate need of those who will stand in the gap and love us through the storm as these Pharisees rage on. The horrible example of Christianity being delivered by the radical extremists is turning people away from the church, and they are pushing them away from Jesus. Christians, your silence can be deafening to those being oppressed. We need you. Desperately, we need people who will love us. For the harvest is plentiful, yet the laborers are few, and we need you. We need each other. Just as Dr. King said, in the end we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. If you do not understand what it means to be transgender, nor do you know the needs of the LGBTQ community, but you do understand the example of Jesus, and you understand that we were only told to love, you can reach out to Texas Impact. They will point you in the direction of the resources that you need and the people who need you. If you have not already done so, please visit texasimpact.org. Sign the Texas Impact letter that we have all signed, and I believe we have about 2,000 others that have signed with us. That letter just states that you are a person of faith, that you do not support this legislation, and that you will view this community through the lens of love.
I want to thank everyone for being a part of this event today. I want to have a couple of logistical announcements for all of our participants here. Again, denominational photos we want to take as soon as this breaks. The Methodists will be here on these steps. The Lutherans will go to the west steps. The Presbyterians to the east steps. The Episcopalians will gather in the shade of the trees. They're the one that bribed me enough to give them a shade. And all the other faith traditions, if you'll kind of gather here, then you can do a group picture together as well after the Methodists are done taking theirs. When you're done with your pictures, there will be Texas Impact persons with signs and their shirts to direct you to the lobby of the Robert Johnson Conference Center, where there will be lunch and some training for the lobbying that will take place today with legislatures. So please watch for them after the pictures. And for all of our media here today, all of our speakers will remain here. If you want to have follow-up questions, you can catch them individually and do that with them. I'd like to just close us with a word of prayer today. So the Lord be with you. Almighty God, we thank you for your presence this day as you stand beside us and walk with us in our life of faith. We thank you for the way in which so many have gathered to be able to speak to legislators today. We pray that you would give them ears to hear and that you would all give us hearts of compassion and understanding. All this we ask in the name of our Lord. Amen. Thank you all.
All right, guys, taking you over now. We're staying in Texas, and actually, check out this shot right now. You are looking at a bus that is rolling down the highway. We're actually not quite sure what the bus means, but we think it is this. There was a daycare fire in San Antonio, Texas. So we're jumping over to another area of Texas. All the children reportedly got out, and everything is okay. But now this is sort of the follow-up chopper feed that's coming in. This is live footage of this this aftermath.
Yes, we believe that since the children are all safe and the chopper is following this bus, we believe that this is where the children are. They're being safely relocated from the daycare, which right now is almost the fire's been put out. It's now nothing just but smoke and so yeah.
Exactly. So we're staying in the state of Texas, guys. A lot of news today out of Texas, but you're looking at this. We don't know how long we'll have this shot, but you can see. So see if I have any sound on this. Probably not. Yeah, just chopper feed right now. No reporter on this. But we saw earlier some aerials of just a really big mass square of land, black char kind of everywhere. Yeah. Looks like everything was really ruined.
Yeah, we don't know what happened. We don't know the cause. All we know is that right now the fire has been put out. It's now the daycare is now just a pile of burnt black rubble.
Yeah.
So we don't know what happened, but all we know is that the children are safe and they're being relocated.
Yeah, apparently, guys, it was Bright Kids Daycare Center. We just saw the aftermath of that again. We really didn't get a glimpse of anything, the children filing out or anything right now. Not even an official word on exactly what we're watching, but this happened earlier this morning in the 10 o'clock hour San Antonio time, where a blaze just ripped through this daycare, and 24 units responded quickly to the scene. That's a lot of units. We didn't actually get that shot, but everybody coordinated together to make sure the children at the daycare were safe and accounted for. None of them were injured in the fire, thank goodness. But again, pretty compelling, like we were saying, shot of this big area, this square of land that was engulfed in a fire, black char everywhere, black smoke, and they were still trying to put it out when we briefly saw those aerials. There are some reports that are coming out about it now, but again, they are thanking God that this is over and done with, and no one was injured in the fire. So now we don't know how long we'll have this shot, but just some aerials. And like Amber was saying, it's likely that the children are in that bus and being transported to safety.
Does it say anything about the cause?
No, not right now. Still kind of efforting more information on the cause of this, guys, and what exactly happened surrounding it.
I'm just wondering because it may be associated with the weather, but I could be wrong because of the fact that even though it's August, in some areas it could still be sweltering heat.
Yeah, guys, and now we have the White House shot again, and we lost that feed, but to reiterate there, it was a fire that tore through this daycare in the northeast side of San Antonio, Texas, if you guys are familiar with the area. Here, we'll just take it back in. And again, apparently the building burned very quickly. It was over and done with very fast. No word right now on how it started. That's what I'm reading so far. So more details if that comes out. But yeah, more than 24, that's like 25 fire units responded to the scene. And all the children were safe and accounted for. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, that's a very good sign.
We'll be looking for some more live sources for you guys. But until then, you know that the White House press briefing is coming up shortly. Sarah Huckabee Sanders will be leading that. It's back on camera. We've seen it now for a few days. Sort of later in the afternoon. Today it's slated around the 2 o'clock hour. So that's coming up Eastern time. But yeah, we'll be back with you guys in a little bit. We'll be going inside this building right here, a live look at the White House here in DC, guys. We'll be right back. Guys, you might know that Vice President Pence is in Montenegro, the country of Montenegro, over in Eastern Europe with his wife, Karen Pence. And so we've been sort of following his trip a little bit, as much as we can get in. But because of the time change, obviously, and just the differences, we don't have a lot of video coming in. But just hearing word that on our source, on our stream, we may be getting it down some tape playback video of a dinner that Vice President Pence participated in with the Montenegrin Prime Minister. That's coming up in a moment here. So we're going to try to snag that and play that back for you to have you check in over there with what's going on his Eastern European 3-day excursion trip. Again, you see in the bottom of your screen here, next up is the White House press briefing. We'll be waiting around for that. Hoping it starts on time. Don't know. We always have these late starts to that, but should be another interesting one with a lot happening. Of course, yesterday, the big news, Anthony Scaramucci, the new communications director, is out after 10 days. And just the shakeups in the White House, in the administration, has been the big talker and the big news. So we'll kind of check in there and see what's going on there. That will be coming up shortly, guys. So we'll keep a watch for this video. For now, just hang out with us. Enjoy. Let us know any questions or comments that you have. And we'll be trying to bring you all of this live video as soon as we have it. Thanks for watching. And I will see you soon, guys.
You can stay in space for a long period of time, and it's actually very satisfying and enjoying. I think that from a research perspective, we're learning lots of things, although the data analysis won't obviously be complete until I return, and in many cases, more subjects have to return, and we gather all the data together to make a big picture that fits not just an individual, but a profile of people, so that we understand how the human body is specifically affected here in microgravity.
That's so fascinating to me, and I'm sure all of our viewers. So I do actually want to go back to the beginning a little bit. I've read that you've been interested in being an astronaut as early as the 4th grade. Were there any teachers or scientists who particularly inspired you as a child?
Well, actually, when I was 9, I saw the first astronauts walk on the moon, so I thought, wow, cool job. But I think when you're 9, you want to be lots of things. And it wasn't until I graduated from high school and they selected the first female astronauts that year. And I think it went from being a dream to becoming a goal of mine to try and become an astronaut. Of course, throughout the years, I've had the pleasure, the privilege, the luxury of having wonderful mentors and leaders along the way that have shown me that it is possible to become an astronaut, and actually that it's possible to be a female and a scientist. I was lucky enough to have many advisors starting in college and then in graduate school who happened to be female. Dr. Graff and Dr. Matthews really helped me along, and I was inspired by their energy, their motivation, their drive, made me feel that I could also do things that I wanted to do.
That's great. I do remember seeing that Sally Ride as the first American woman in space is what really solidified for you the possibility of having this career. Now you are a role model, so what do you hope to inspire in people who are following in your footsteps?
Well, I hope to inspire folks to dream big, to go after your dreams, even if they might seem impossible, because you never know. I think the one piece of advice that I think is probably most important is to try and do something more than you might think you're capable of, because you will surprise yourself.
That's such a powerful message. Thank you so much for that. So we saw, obviously you are floating in space right in front of us, and we saw your microphone twirl. What does that feel like? Is the anti-gravity still fun, or is it just another day at the office?
Actually, it's still amazing to be able to float and move around and pretty much effortlessly do whatever you want with your body in space is pretty amazing. It does have some disadvantages, though, because in some cases, when you're working with small items or articles, it's easy to lose them. And so you have to keep track of all the things that you're working on, and that you know, requires some extra planning. Make sure you have Velcro or tape sticky side up so that you can put things down while you're working on experiments or fixing hardware, etc.
Well, I have no doubt that people who are watching I'm sure there are many who are inspired to try to get into the space program. Is the training as hard as it seems?
Actually, I found it extremely challenging, but we've got lots of really smart folks that probably wouldn't say the same about it. But a lot of hard work and dedicated effort really paid off for me. And so I feel like that it can pay off for other folks as well. Probably the hardest thing that I had to learn, you know, going in as a biochemist, maybe orbital mechanics was probably challenging, but the reality was the very hardest thing was learning the Russian language. So everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses, and that one was mine.
I have to ask, are you fluent in Russian now? Was that a requirement that you had to achieve?
I would say I'm Soyuz fluent. I flew in the left seat of the Soyuz, so I can talk a lot about pumps and pressures and temperatures and things like that, very mechanical things. But talking to someone in a conversation, my vocabulary is not very deep, so it just depends on the subject. But on my last flight, I was in the left seat in the Soyuz, so I had to be.
All right, guys, let's switch it over now to cut into this ceremony that we were talking about. A little tape playback here from Vice President Pence meeting with the Montenegrin Prime Minister. Check it out. This was earlier this morning. So guys, there you have it there. Vice President Pence meeting with the Prime Minister of Montenegro. He's over there on his Eastern European trip, talking security and U.S. relations with these countries. I thought it was interesting, too, that the Vice President's wife, Karen Pence, her initiative, her passion project in the White House has to do with art therapy and helping kids with therapy through art. And I think I was reading that she was sort of furthering that initiative as she's over here, which is pretty cool to see. As always, the First Lady and the Vice President's wife usually take on some type of project that is sort of their mission, just like Michelle Obama did. And that's what she's furthering on this trip. So these are sort of more video cuts that we're getting in as tape playback. If you're just joining us, Vice President Pence, it's further along in his 3-day trip, his excursion into Eastern Europe. He's here in Montenegro now. I believe the second of his 3 countries that he's visiting. He was in Georgia earlier this week, and probably is finishing up today or tomorrow, and we'll be back after that. So this is just sort of video of his trip here, and we're going to keep it on here for a little bit. We're going to come back with live from the White House, guys, the White House press briefing. That's next on the plan on the show. So hope that you're enjoying the stream and get to check in with these world events, these global political kind of scene and events, as long as you otherwise may not see it. You can catch it on our stream. We try to bring you the latest stuff that we have coming in, whether it be politics or sports or entertainment or science. A lot of mix of stuff that's live, anything breaking. So, yeah, we're just checking in here with you guys.
Thank you.
Vice President, if you allow me, I would like to give toast. Honorable Vice Premier, Mr. Mike Pence, dear guests, it is my great honor and privilege to say words of welcome to Vice President of the United States of America and his delegation. On behalf of citizens of Montenegro, our delegation, and my own. Vice President, I express great appreciation for the traditional friendship of Montenegro and the United States. The relations of 2 countries are indeed excellent. More than that, they have been allied countries throughout history. Montenegro have been standing side by side with Americans in Afghanistan and elsewhere in the peace missions for years. I am proud to say, with Montenegro as NATO member country, our alliance is stronger than ever. As President Donald Trump has told in his letter to me, that we share common values, and we will never give them up. Strengthening these values will make our partnership even greater, and we are looking forward to see it done. I take up this important occasion to express profound gratitude of all of citizens of Montenegro to the United States for supporting Montenegro, for restoring independent state, for being member of NATO, and for achieving our reforms. Dear friends, I raise the glass for prosperity of American people, Montenegro, American friendship, and for your health and success, Vice President, and for health and success, your family. God bless friendship of Montenegro and the United States of America forever. Cheers.
President Vujanovic, Prime Minister Markovic, Speaker Brajovic, thank you for your gracious hospitality. Thank you for the warm welcome that my wife and I received upon arriving in Montenegro. Deeply honored to be in your great country and to celebrate the long-standing relationship between the people of Montenegro and the people of the United States of America. And it's my particular honor to be the first Vice President of the United States to ever visit Montenegro. And I'll cherish that. I bring greetings from President Donald Trump. He sent me here as a tangible sign of our commitment to Montenegro as the newest member of NATO. I had the privilege of being with your Prime Minister during his visit to the White House on the very day that Montenegro enjoyed its accession to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. I offered my congratulations to him then, and the President and I offer our congratulations to you again now.
Allow me, Mr. Vice President, to interpret, please.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I was on a roll.
Dobar dan, cijenjeni domaćini, gospodine Marković, gospodine Vujanović, gospodine Brajović. Želim vam toplo zahvaliti za gostoprimstvo u ime svoje supruge i moje. Velika mi je čast biti u vašoj prekrasnoj zemlji i slaviti sa vama dugodgodišnje stalno prijateljstvo između naših naroda. Čast mi je da sam prvi potpredsjednik Amerike koji sam ovdje u Crnoj Gori u službenoj posjeti. Prenosim vam srdečne pozdrave od gospodina predsjednika Trumpa, koji vas pozdravlja kao najnovijeg članicu NATO pakta. Imao sam veliku čast upoznati vaše premijere u Bijeloj kući na prvi dan kada ste bili primljeni u NATO.
I'm here to offer our congratulations on your accession to NATO, but also our appreciation for the strong alliance that dates far beyond your participation in the world's most successful mutual defense treaty.
Želim vam čestitati vaš prijem u NATO i reći vam još jednom koliko cijenimo vaše savezništvo i prijateljstvo koje je znatno starije od vašeg kratkog relativnog staža u najmoćnijoj i najuspješnijoj odbrambenoj organizaciji na svijetu.
America is honored to celebrate our relationship with the strong and free people of Montenegro. And let me assure you, I am here as a testament to the fact that America has no small allies, only strong allies. And I hope my presence here today affirms that.
Želim vam velika je čast, dakle, pozdraviti vas, slobodne i hrabre ljude Crne Gore. Ja ovdje stojim kao simbol da Amerika nema male partnere, nego samo ima snažne partnere.
Let me also thank you for hosting tomorrow's Adriatic Charter Summit and for the leading role that Montenegro has taken in advancing the stability and security of the Western Balkans.
Zahvaljujem još što ste domaćini sutrašnjeg ovog Jadranskog samita I za rukovodeću ulogu koju je Crna Gora preuzela u ovim naporima.
Your courage, particularly in the face of Russian pressure, inspires the world, and I commend you for it.
Vaša hrabrost I posebno sada kada ste suočeni sa pritiskom iz Rusije je na divljenje cijelom svijetu I ja vam čestitam na tome.
And so toast. Your health.
U vaše zdravlje.
May our alliance prosper. May our friendship deepen.
Neka naš savez bude sve jači I naše prijateljstvo sve dublje.
And may the people of Montenegro and America grow ever closer in independence and freedom.
I neka savezništvo ljudi iz Crne Gore I naš narod Crne Gore I Sjedinjenih Američkih Država bude sve jače u nezavisnosti I slobodi.
Here's to the future.
Podsjećaš za budućnost.
Zavili.
All right. We're done with the feed.
All right, guys, so that was footage of Vice President Pence in Montenegro. Guys, we're going to go into the White House press briefing room now because that was next on our radar. Thanks so much for watching. It's been kind of cool to document or to follow these guys as they go on their trips because we get these sources in very randomly and don't often know when we're going to get them. But now we're inside the briefing room, guys, like we had anticipated. And as always, we never know when this is really going to start. We anticipate a 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time start to this briefing. It would be nice if we could always rely on that, but that isn't always often the case. So we'll kind of watch and wait this out with you guys. But that is coming up next. We'll take you inside this building right here, this live look at the White House. And we'll go right inside there to this briefing room. And I hope that this comes up very shortly. So we want to thank you guys for joining us on the stream. We'll probably end the show with this, but it will be live, and you guys can catch whatever questions Sarah Sanders is asked before you catch it later on evening articles and news shows. It's all live right here on Fox 5 Live. So join with us, guys. We are going to be watching with you. And, yeah, we'll go from there. All right. Talk to you soon. Woo.
Hello, Barb.
Hey. No basement upstairs. How's your?
That was the most amazing thing of my time. You noticed? He's aligned to my show.
Yeah, Harris, good afternoon to you from the inside of the White House, the Brady briefing room, where the dust is beginning to settle after the transition to the new Chief of Staff, John Kelly, and the president is trying to push his legislative agenda, which includes a big push toward tax reform. The president, in about an hour's time, will be hosting a number of small business owners here at the White House. The president wants to reduce the tax rate on small businesses, S corporations, pass-through corporations, to the same as the corporate tax rate, and he wants to lower the corporate tax rate to about 15%, though he may have to settle for some 20%, which is in the Ryan tax plan. Maybe a real heavy lift to get to that 15, could be impossible. But with the August recess looming, the president wants to start to try to build some momentum so that he can get tax reform done, or at least begun, the day after people get back from the Labor Day weekend. The Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin expecting that there's going to be some opposition to whatever plan comes out of the White House and Congress, but he's urging everyone to get together, to pull together for tax reform. Listen to what he said yesterday. All of that said, and Mnuchin really has been a proponent of getting tax reform done, regardless of whether or not you get health care reform done. There is still a real push here in the White House to try to get health care reform done, because by reforming health care, getting rid of Obamacare and its inherent taxes, you open up a pool of nearly $1 trillion, Harris, that you can put together into tax reform. Yep, September 30th.
All you have to do is look at the actual responses from the outside counselors here. You've got John Dowd, you've got Jay Sekulow, people in the president's legal team.
It's likely that you'll probably get a couple of questions on that. The Washington Post reporting that the president, on his way back from the G20 aboard Air Force One, actually dictated that initial statement attributed to his son, Donald Trump Jr., in response to the meeting that he had with Natalia Veselnitskaya, the Russian attorney, on June 9th, 2016. Let's remind you what that original statement said. Quote, "It was a short introductory meeting. I asked Jared and Paul to stop by. We primarily discussed a program about the adoption of Russian children that was active and popular with American families years ago and was since ended by the Russian government. But it was not a campaign issue at the time, and there was no follow-up." Of course, that statement did not tell the entire story. It had to be amended later to say that the original reason for the meeting was that the Russians were offering up some opposition research on Hillary Clinton. But as to the issue of whether or not the president dictated the statement himself, his legal team is pushing back hard against that. His attorney, Jay Sekulow, saying, quote, "Apart from being of no consequence, the characterizations are misinformed, inaccurate, and not pertinent." The sources pointing fingers at disgruntled former members of the president's legal team is to say, well, maybe they're just trying to stir the pot. But there did seem to be some discrepancy when talking to sources about the difference between what Donald Trump Jr. and his team wanted to come out and say. They wanted a little more transparency in what that initial statement came out and said, which again required some further clarification. But the president's legal team, Harris, also saying that even if the president did dictate that statement word for word legally, there's nothing wrong with that. Harris? Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, yeah, blah, blah.
we have said America first is not America alone, we also are wanting to define with our allies and partners what our expectations are. And I think it's been long overdue that we have that kind of a conversation with others around the world. We have long-standing relationships that all of you know well are embedded in shared sacrifice, but more importantly, they're embedded in shared values. But having said that, a lot of things have happened over the last 50 years, and certainly a lot has happened since the end of the Cold War. And I don't know that anyone's ever actually taken a step back and said, you know, these relationships that have served us well for so long, are they still going to serve us in the 21st century? And so a lot of what President Trump is doing is he is challenging without disposing. And I think it's important that people understand he's not throwing these things away. He is challenging them for this century. How should we define these relationships to serve the American people's interest, obviously first and foremost, but in doing so, I think we're confident it serves the global interest and the interest of our allies and partners as well. So I say that to you to kind of position then this little walk I want to take around the world and ask you to kind of think about it that way. As we came into office, we walked into a number of situations of conflict and threats around the world, and our assessment of the situation required us to make some pretty significant pivots in a different direction than our predecessors were taking. And we think these pivots are necessary to achieve security for the American people, create the conditions for prosperity for the American people, and in doing so, we create better conditions for security and prosperity the world over, and that serves everyone's interest well. One of the first threats we were confronted with upon entering office is North Korea, and it was the first policy area that we felt an urgency to deal with. And I think as many of you have watched over the last several months, that threat has materialized in the ways that we expected it would. And that's why early on we identified it as a very urgent matter, and the North Koreans have certainly proven the urgency of that to us. We initiated a sustained and continued intensified campaign on what I like to call peaceful pressure, because the options available to us, I think as all of you well understand, are limited, and particularly if we think we are operating under a short period of time. So we felt the appropriate thing to do first was to seek peaceful pressure on the regime in North Korea to have them develop a willingness to sit and talk with us and others, but with an understanding that a condition of those talks is there is no future where North Korea holds nuclear weapons or the ability to deliver those nuclear weapons to anyone in the region, much less to the homeland. In doing so, we've sought to partner with China. China does account for 90% of economic activity with North Korea. The Chinese have been very clear with us that we share the same objective, a denuclearized Korean peninsula. They do not see it in their interest for North Korea to have nuclear weapons, just as we do not see it in anyone's interest. China has ways that they can put pressure on and influence the North Korean regime because of this significant economic relationship that no one else has. We've been very clear with the Chinese. We certainly don't blame the Chinese for the situation in North Korea. Only the North Koreans are to blame for this situation. But we do believe China has a special and unique relationship because of this significant economic activity to influence the North Korean regime in ways that no one else can. And that's why we continue to call upon them to use that influence with North Korea to create the conditions where we can have a productive dialogue. We don't think having a dialogue where the North Koreans come to the table assuming they're going to maintain their nuclear weapons is productive. So that's really what the objective that we are about is. We have reaffirmed our position towards North Korea, that what we are doing, we do not seek a regime change. We do not seek the collapse of the regime. We do not seek an accelerated reunification of the peninsula. We do not seek an excuse to send our military north of the 38th parallel. And we're trying to convey to the North Koreans, we are not your enemy, we're not your threat, but you are presenting an unacceptable threat to us, and we have to respond. And we hope that at some point they will begin to understand that, and that we would like to sit and have a dialogue with them about the future that will give them the security they seek and the future economic prosperity for North Korea, but that will then promote economic prosperity throughout Northeast Asia. This is going to be a continued effort to put ever greater pressure on the North Korean regime because our other options obviously are not particularly attractive. Now, in saying that, I want to acknowledge a couple of people, and I'm going to give some credit to people as I go through this. These first 6 months, we've been carrying out this activity, as you know, with largely people in acting assistant secretary positions, using our ambassadors, the strength of the organization, and I'm quite proud of what we've accomplished. And in dealing with North Korea, acting assistant secretary Susan Thornton and Ambassador Joseph Yoon have been stellar in helping us develop these policies and carry them out. Susan Thornton also has been key to our relationship with China, and I think it's important that everyone understand that North Korea does not define the relationship with China. Our relationship with China obviously is much broader, and if you go back to the summit in Mar-a-Lago between President Trump and President Xi, much of that summit was a discussion about what should the relationship between the U.S. and China be. It has been defined since the opening of China with the historic Nixon visit, the adoption of the One China policy, the 3 documents and agreements, and that has given us a long period of no conflict between China and the U.S., creating conditions for enormous economic growth and prosperity in China, which the U.S. and the rest of the world has seen benefits from as well. That has defined the last 40 to 50 years of our relationship. The question now is that we believe we're at a bit of a pivot point in that relationship because of how China has progressed now to become the 2nd largest economy in the world, and they will continue to grow in their importance to the global economy. What should define this relationship for the next 50 years? And those are the discussions that we have with the Chinese in the broadest contours. How should we define this relationship, and how do we ensure that economic prosperity to the benefit of both countries in the world can continue, and that where we have differences, because we will have differences, we do have differences, that we will deal with those differences in a way that does not lead to open conflict. And that has been the success of the past policy. It's one that we must continue, but we recognize conditions have changed, and to simply rely upon the past may not serve either one of us well. So these are very in-depth conversations and discussions we have with the Chinese, and we test this relationship through things like the situation in North Korea. Can we work together to address this global threat where we have a common objective, and where we have differences in the South China Sea and we have some trading differences that need to be addressed? Can we work through those differences in a way without it leading to open conflict and find the solutions that are necessary to serve us both? Out of Mar-a-Lago came, I think, some very important commitments to one another. We established 4 very high-level dialogues. We had many, many dialogues with the Chinese in the past, over 20 dialogues, but these were at a level that we felt were insufficient to deal with this question of our relationship. So the Chinese agreed to designate very high-level individuals. So we have 4 dialogues. The diplomatic and security dialogue is led by myself and Secretary Mattis. With our counterparts in China, we have had 2 meetings of the diplomatic and security dialogue. The economic and trade dialogue has met twice. That's led by Secretary Mnuchin and Secretary Ross. We have 2 other dialogues that are yet to meet: law enforcement and cybersecurity, and then social or people to people. And so these are really to help us explore the tough issues that exist for the 2 largest economies in the world and 2 significant military powers, as to how do we want to deal with these issues. And they've served, I think they've served us well to this point, and they've been quite helpful in us advancing this understanding of one another's interest. So we will continue those. And again, I want to thank Assistant Secretary Susan Thornton for her help in advancing these. So I want to turn to Russia next. And the relationship, as you know, in Russia continues to be under considerable stress. As I indicated in my first trip to Moscow and meetings at the Kremlin with President Putin, following those meetings, the relationship was at a historic low since the end of the Cold War, and it could get worse. And the question, I think, of the events of the last week or so is it getting worse, or can we maintain some level of stability in that relationship and continue to find ways to address areas of mutual interest and ways in which we can deal with our differences without those becoming open conflicts as well. We have explored in the early days one area of mutual interest, which is terrorism. And we've chosen the theater in Syria as a place in which we test our ability to work together. We share the common view of ISIS as a threat to both of our countries, and so we are committed to the defeat of ISIS, Daesh, other terrorist organizations, and then we are committed to the stability of Syria following the battle to defeat ISIS. Clearly, Russia has aligned itself early on in the conflict with the Syrian regime and Bashar al-Assad, which we find to be unacceptable. So we're working with Russia through how do we achieve the end state, which is a unified Syria, not divided, but a Syria that has the opportunity for the Syrian people to put in place a new constitution, have free and fair elections, and select a new leadership. And it continues to be our view that the Assad regime has no role in the future governing of Syria. The sequencing of all of that, we're open to, as long as that's what is achieved at the end. The second condition we have is that Iran's military influence, the direct presence of Iranian military forces inside of Syria, they must leave and go home, whether those are Iranian Revolutionary Guard forces or whether those are paid militias, foreign fighters that Iran has brought into Syria in this battle. Those are our two end-state conditions, and those are shared by many of our coalition partners the world over. So we're working with the Russians. We've achieved one small measure of success by working in concert with Jordan to create a de-escalation zone, a zone of ceasefire in the southwest part of Syria, which thus far is holding. I think the achievement out of this is civilians are not getting killed, and that was our objective, is to stop the massive bombing attacks and the artillery attacks that have led to so many civilian deaths. It is our hope that this first zone of deconfliction will hold with the Russians' assistance and the Russians delivering on their commitments, and that we can find ways to replicate this in other areas, in particular in the northern part of Syria, as we continue to liberate areas from ISIS. In the Ukraine, we have been very consistent in our messages to Russia that the Minsk Accords must be achieved, they must be implemented. Otherwise, nothing can be done about the sanction situation in Ukraine. As you're aware, we've appointed a special representative to Ukraine, former ambassador to NATO, Kurt Volker. Kurt's a very experienced ambassador, diplomat to the area. He knows the area well. He knows Russia well. He certainly knows our partners well. And he's very clear-eyed about his mission to see if we cannot engage to move the process in Ukraine forward. It has been stalled, as you know, for quite some time. This announcement has been welcomed both by the Russians, and it's been welcomed by the Normandy group that has been engaged with Russia in an effort to move these discussions forward. So we are hopeful we can make some progress in beginning to move the situation in Ukraine to a place of engagement and movement towards achieving a true ceasefire, because the outbreak in violence this year has been just heartbreaking to watch in East Ukraine. We're going to continue to uphold our commitment to the transatlantic relationship, and the President's been quite clear on our commitment to NATO. He's been quite clear on his expectations of others in NATO, and I think all of that, again, very appropriately so. We have affirmed the commitment to Article 5. Unquestionably, that should not be an issue in anyone's minds any longer. In working with Russia and the difficult issues there, I want to acknowledge Brian Hook, who is my Director of Policy Planning, has worked with his team to give us a number of options. Importantly, two important ambassadors in the region, John Teft, who is our ambassador in Moscow, dealing with a very tough situation right now, but also our ambassador in the Ukraine, Maria Yovanovitch. She's doing an outstanding job working with President Poroshenko to continue to help the government in Ukraine strengthen its own governing standards, continue to make progress on the anti-corruption campaign, and strengthen their own justice system, which we think is important to their stability going forward. So I want to turn to the Middle East and, again, the destruction of radical Islamist terrorism in the form of ISIS or Daesh, but also in the form of Al-Qaeda and the many other names that all of you know. The coalition's integrated civilian and military efforts, I think, have achieved remarkable success since President Trump came into office. He made some very significant shifts in military authorities to put battlefield command decisions closer to the fight. and I think the results are quite evident. More than 70% of Iraqi territory that was once held by ISIS has been liberated and recovered. ISIS has been unable to retake any territory that has been liberated, and almost 2 million Iraqis have returned home. And this is really the measure of success, I think, is when conditions are such that people feel like they can return to their homes. The liberation of Mosul has really broken an ISIS stronghold, as you all know, in Iraq. It would not have been possible without the strong cooperation of the Iraqi government. And these battles have been fought by the Iraqi military and their soldiers, with our advisors helping them. The State Department's role in this has been to follow very quickly as areas are liberated with humanitarian assistance and with efforts at stabilization. So that means securing areas so people feel safe to go home, securing them with local law enforcement, faces they recognize are wearing the police uniforms in their communities, bringing back into the community the previous local leaders who fled when ISIS came in, restoring fundamental needs to the community: power, water, sewage. That's where we stop. We get the essentials in place. We're not there to rebuild their communities. That's for them to do. And that's for the international community to marshal the resources to allow them to do that. We liberate the areas, we secure the areas, we restore essential needs so people can begin to move back in, and we consider our task at that point, our mission's largely been achieved. Similarly, over in Syria, we're assisting with the liberation of Raqqa, which is moving at a faster pace than we originally anticipated. However, all of us, I think, are clear-eyed and understand that even there, that battle will hit a core resistance, and it'll be a very tough fight to ultimately liberate all of Raqqa. But again, we're taking the same approach. We've pre-staged humanitarian assistance. We've pre-staged equipment so that as areas are liberated, people can immediately begin to move back in and retake their community and rebuild their lives. So we will replicate the success we've had in Mosul and Raqqa as we've done in other communities as well. We've accomplished a lot of this through this grand coalition to defeat ISIS that was convened. It's now consists of 68 countries and 5 international agencies. We convened that coalition here in March to lay out this plan of how we wanted to attack the liberation areas as those areas are freed up. We were able to raise more than $2 billion of commitments from the coalition. That money has shown up as we need it. We are not resource limited in these efforts that I described to you. So we basically have raised $3 for every one that we've put in of the U.S.'s money. We're going to continue those efforts, and we had another round of talks here in the last month around Raqqa and are beginning to collect pledges and revenues to replicate that in Raqqa. I think our next steps on the global war to defeat ISIS are to recognize ISIS is a global issue. We already see elements of ISIS in the Philippines, as you're aware, gaining a foothold. Some of these fighters have gone to the Philippines from Syria and Iraq. We are in conversations with the Philippine government, with Indonesia, with Malaysia, with Singapore, with Australia, as partners to recognize this threat, try to get ahead of this threat, and help them with training their own law enforcement capabilities, sharing of intelligence, and provide them wherewithal to anticipate what may be coming their direction. This is a battle that's going to go on for a long time, and this is the battlefield on the ground. The second battlefield is in the cyberspace, social media space, and the disruption of the messaging that allows ISIS and Daesh to attract new recruits to their cause. So this is also a fight that will go on for months and years ahead. In Syria, I think if we think about Syria post the defeat of ISIS, what we are hoping to avoid is an outbreak of the civil war, because we really, as you know, have 2 conflicts underway in Syria: the war against ISIS, the civil war that created the conditions for ISIS to emerge. Again, we're working closely with Russia and other parties to see if we can agree a path forward on how to stabilize Syria in the post-ISIS world, create zones of stabilization and lines of deconfliction that will hold, and then create conditions for the political process to play out in Geneva. We still support the Geneva process as a means of engaging the parties on the future of Syria's governance. A lot of work ahead of us, and we don't have the conditions yet in place to achieve that. But we are going to work with others, the neighbors in the region, as well as those stakeholders in Syria, to see if we cannot create those conditions that will lead to talks in Geneva and elsewhere to put in place a longer-term solution for Syria. And again, I think in this region of the world, I want to recognize Ambassador John Bass in Turkey. Turkey has a big role to play in this. As you know, our relationship with Turkey is a bit under stress as well, and Ambassador Bass has been most helpful and remarkable in how he's led our efforts there in Ankara. Also want to acknowledge Brett McGurk, Special Envoy to the war against ISIS, and his assistant, number 2, Terry Wolf. They are the people on the ground in Syria, near the fight, checking to see if this aid is showing up the way it's supposed to, and are we meeting our commitments to restore some of the basic needs of the communities.
That's all the time. Good afternoon. Somebody's polite out there. In about an hour, the President will join Small Business Administrator Linda McMahon and his daughter Ivanka for a special event highlighting the role small businesses play as major drivers of our economy. Around 58 million people are employed by small businesses around the country, accounting for nearly half of the United States employment. That's 58 million individuals whose families count on small businesses to keep food on the table, send their children to college, or save for the future. And that's why we have an entire agency led by an incredibly successful businesswoman dedicated specifically to promoting small businesses. During the last administration, small business found themselves under assault from a federal government that seemed determined to keep piling on regulations and compliance requirements until it became impossible to keep their doors open. Obamacare's mandate saddled many with health care costs they simply couldn't afford, and every year these business owners see new additions to the tax code that force them to spend additional time and money to file. The President is committed to ending these anti-growth policies and unleashing the American economy. We will continue to work with Congress to repeal Obamacare's oppressive mandates, and along with our partners in Congress, we will deliver bold tax reform that provides relief for middle-income individuals, a more competitive model for businesses, and a simplification for everyone. And we will continue the President's ambitious plans to eliminate unnecessary regulations which disproportionately affect small businesses. We look forward to hearing from the small businesses this afternoon about how the Trump administration can continue to be an advocate for them. And with that, we'll keep it short today, and I'll take your questions now. Alex.
I wanted to ask about a comment Senator Lindsey Graham made this morning. He said it was wrong that there's no good military option regarding North Korea. He said there's a military option to destroy North Korea's program and North Korea itself. Would the White House be supportive of that option?
I'm sorry?
Would the White House be supportive of that option, to destroy North Korea's program and North Korea itself?
Is somebody lost for those directions? Sorry, I just keep hearing somebody's phone talking or something. Yeah, it's very distracting.
The military option against North Korea is to destroy North Korea's program and North Korea itself.
Look, the President obviously has been very outspoken about how he feels about North Korea. We're weighing all options, keeping all options on the table. And as we've said many times before, we're not going to broadcast what we're going to do until that happens. I'm sorry?
So destroying the country, like Lindsey Graham said, is an option.
Look, that's not what I'm saying. Okay. What I'm saying, the President has been very outspoken about the need to stop North Korea. We've been very focused on stopping the nuclear program, stopping the missiles, stopping the aggression. That still continues to be the focus, and we're keeping those all options on the table in order to do that.
According to the Washington Post, the President tried to change the narrative of what went down in John Jr.'s meeting with the Russian lawyer. Can you address that story and tell us, did the President really try to do that?
Look, the statement that Don Jr. issued is true. There's no inaccuracy in the statement. The President weighed in as any father would based on the limited information that he had. This is all discussion, frankly, of no consequence. There was no follow-up. It was disclosed to the proper parties, which is how the New York Times found out about it to begin with. The Democrats want to continue to use this as a PR stunt and are doing everything they can to keep this story alive and in the papers every single day. The President, the American people, they voted America first, not Russia first, and that's the focus of our administration.
Sarah,
John?
Can you clarify the degree to which the President weighed in?
He certainly didn't dictate, but you know, like I said, he weighed in, offered suggestion like any father would do.
Did he not know what the
Stephen?
that we'll follow up on that. Was he aware at the time that Don Jr. had a meeting that was based on the pretext that he would be promised information that was negative about Hillary Clinton when he suggested that the statement only say that the meeting was primarily about Russian adoption policy?
Like I said, the statement that was issued was true and there were no inaccuracies in the statement. I think what the bigger question is, everybody wants to try to make this some story about misleading. The only thing I see misleading is a year's worth of stories that have been fueling a false narrative about this Russia collusion and based on a phony scandal based on anonymous sources. And I think that is, if we're going to talk about misleading, that's the only thing misleading I see in this entire process. You guys are focused on a meeting that Don Jr. had no consequence when the Democrats actually colluded with a foreign government like Ukraine. The Democrat-linked firm Fusion GPS actually took money from the Russian government while it created the phony dossier that's been the basis for all of the Russia scandal fake news. And if you want to talk further about a relationship with Russia, look no further than the Clintons. As we've said time and time again, Bill Clinton was paid $500,000 to give a speech to a Russian bank and was personally thanked by Putin for it. Hillary Clinton allowed 1/5 of America's uranium to reserve to be sold to a Russian firm whose investors were Clinton Foundation donors, and the Clinton campaign chairman's brother lobbied against sanctions on Russia's largest bank and failed to report it. If you guys want to talk about having relations, which you seem obsessed with doing, look no further than there. If you want to talk about somebody who's actually been tough on Russia, look at President Trump. He wants more fracking, more coal, more energy, a stronger military, a stronger defense. Those things aren't good for Russia. I think the distinctions are very clear, and you guys want to create a narrative that just doesn't exist. Hey guys. Glenn, go ahead. Glenn, go ahead.
Sorry. Sarah, sort of a follow-up on what you were talking about, our obsession with Russia and the responsibility laying with the Clintons. There's a report out today based on a lawsuit that was filed that says that Sean Spicer met with a campaign donor and a journalist from Fox News where they were pushing around this story that Seth Rich, this low-ranking DNC staffer who was murdered, was perhaps the one responsible for the WikiLeaks breach. Two questions. Sean put out a statement. He said it was just a brief meeting. He said the guy didn't know the president. The lawsuit alleges that the president knew about it and had an influence on the story. Did the president know about the story pre-publication, and did he have an influence on the way the story was written?
The president had no knowledge of the story, and it's completely untrue that he or the White House involvement in the story. And beyond that, this is ongoing litigation, and I'd refer you to the actual parties involved, which aren't the White House.
Follow-up, does it disturb you that the press secretary for the President of the United States, who just gave this incredibly passionate pushback on us for focusing on Russia, does it disturb you, you just sped right past this, does it disturb you that there's an allegation out there in a lawsuit, and Sean Spicer admitted meeting with these two individuals, that this was discussed in your White House?
He met with members of the media. I don't find that to be a strange thing. You guys are all members of the media. He was pushing a story that was later retracted because it was false. He met with that reporter, and he met with a campaign donor. Does it disturb you? Does it say anything about this White House that you would entertain that kind of story? It doesn't bother me that the press secretary would take a meeting with somebody involved in the media about a story. None of that was disclosed. They had a conversation, and that was the end of it. You guys come to us with stories all day. I've taken meetings with the majority of the people in this room. I don't always know the nature of the story of which you're coming to talk to me about, but it's my job to talk to you, to listen, and I'm responding. The president didn't have knowledge of the story. The White House didn't have any involvement in the story, and beyond that, it's ongoing litigation that doesn't involve anybody in the building, and so I'd refer you to the parties that it does.
I've got two questions for you, please. I want to follow up on something you said yesterday after my first question. You were on that flight back from the G20. Did you advise the president to be truthful in that statement that he was helping?
I wasn't part of a conversation regarding the statement.
You were not in the room at the time? Or in that area at the time?
I was in the air. I was on the plane, but I wasn't part of the conversation, so I can't speak to anything beyond that part.
Yesterday you said that the president was joking about his comments, putting suspects' heads, telling police officers they shouldn't cover their heads and putting them in the car. Was he making a joke about police brutality?
Not at all. I think you guys are jumping and trying to make something out of nothing. He was simply making a comment, making a joke, and it was nothing more than that.
What's funny
Should he apologize for that joke?
On that same issue, the head of the DEA wrote immediately after the president made those remarks to officers of the DEA, telling them to disregard them and saying he had an obligation to speak up when something wrong happened.
It wasn't a directive, it was a joke. There's a very big difference.
Why was that not clear?
Olivia?
Sarah, has the president signed the Russia, North Korea, Iran sanctions bill?
I'm sorry, has he signed it?
Yes.
He has not, but as we put out a statement earlier this week, he will, and we'll let you know when the details and final plan on that
What's the
coming.
delay? What's the delay here? You guys have had this since Friday. What's holding him back?
It's always, there's nothing holding him back. There's a review process, a legal process. They're going through that, and he'll sign the bill, and we'll let you guys know. Margaret.
Thanks, Sarah. I have two questions. The first is there's a really interesting story out just before the briefing began by Defense One, talking about Air Force One, and it says that the U.S. Air Force has found an alternative to get the price down as President Trump wanted, and that was to buy a pair of Boeing 747 jetliners that were abandoned by a bankrupt Russian airline. Can you verify the accuracy of the story? Do you know if that's correct?
I can at this time. It's something I'd have to check into and get back to you.
Okay. And then I also wanted just sort of an update on the Chief of Staff, General Kelly. Can you talk to us sort of in broad strokes about the calls and outreach that he's made so far, leadership in Congress, folks outside of Congress, any governors, and that sort of thing? Just can you talk to us broadly about the message that he's sending and the people that he's talking to both inside and outside of the administration?
I know he's spoken to a number of members of Congress, as well as a large number of individuals within the staff. He's taking time to get to know everyone here in the building that he hasn't met previously through his other role, and working through setting up, new processes and kind of setting the tone, I think, for a White House that under his leadership will be very focused on the president's agenda. As we've been doing the last 6 months, we're going to continue on that track, and we're going to do that under General Kelly, and we're very excited to work alongside him in that process. Hallie?
The president's agenda, and I'm obviously sitting here and I heard you list off a list of reasons of why you think that the media should be focusing on Democrats, not the president. And not to belabor an obvious point, but Hillary Clinton is certainly not in the Oval Office. Donald Trump is. And there seems to be a trust deficit that is being created with some on Capitol Hill. And I want to tell you what Lindsey Graham said this morning on the Today Show. He says, if this is true, this Washington Post reporting, it was a bad decision by the president, which will make us ask more questions. When you get caught in a lie about one thing, it makes it hard to say, well, just let the other stuff go. Is this what is hurting the president's legislative agenda, this credibility issue on the Hill?
I think what's hurting the legislative agenda is Congress's inability to get things passed.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit, Sarah? Because clearly there is a concern from some Republicans that the president is not always being as truthful as he could be. How does he plan to address that?
I think by being truthful and transparent as he has every single day. Go ahead.
Thank you, Sarah. I'd like to return to North Korea. With North Korea continuing to escalate nuclear tensions, can we expect any actions from the administration to ratchet up pressure of actions on China?
As we've said, we're not going to broadcast movements on things like that before they take place, but we're going to continue to work with our allies, continue to work with our partners, and again, the goals are to stop the nuclear program, stop the missiles, stop the aggression. With North Korea, we're going to continue looking at the best options and ways to accomplish that.
Can you say what some of those options might be?
Not at this time. John? Sorry, John Gizzy, you had your hand up when I first went back to you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Happy to go to somebody else named John.
You said yesterday that there would be no reshuffle in the cabinet, meaning General Sessions would not move over to the Homeland Security. Is that correct?
Correct.
And does that also mean that Secretary of State Chris Kobach, the Vice Chairman of the President's Commission on Electoral Integrity, would stay in his position and not be considered for Homeland Security?
I'm not aware of any movements for him, but as always, when we have a personnel announcement, I'll be happy to share it with you. John Decker?
Thanks.
Since we're in the Johns, I'll stick with that.
Thank you, Sarah. I was hoping just to follow up on North Korea, hoping you could clarify the administration's message that it has for North Korea. The other day, the president said, when asked about North Korea, we will take care of them, we will take care of everything. And a little bit ago, the Secretary of State Tillerson said that the U.S. is trying to convince North Korea that the U.S. is not your enemy. So which one is it? Is the president focused on North Korea as an adversary, or is Secretary Tillerson correct that the U.S. is trying to send this message that the U.S. is not North Korea's enemy?
Look, like I just said a few minutes ago, the big priorities here, which we've laid out, I think this is the third or fourth time I've done it just today, is to stop the nuclear program, stop the missiles, stop the aggression. That's what we're focused on in regards to North Korea, and we're going to continue pushing on that, continue working with our allies and partners to accomplish that, and do what is necessary to achieve it.
Are they an adversary? Does the
Look, I think in some ways they get to decide by the actions that they take. If they want to stop their nuclear program, stop the games, stop the missiles, stop the aggression, then I think we may be able to find ways to move forward. But those are the priorities of this administration. Dave.
Sarah, thanks. Secretary Mnuchin had a meeting on the Hill this morning with Senate leaders about the debt ceiling. Apparently, according to reports, they didn't get anywhere. Obviously, this has the potential to affect the stock market rally that the president is so pleased with.
I think the whole country's pleased with it.
Yes, that's true. Do you have any reason to believe at this point that you're going to get the debt ceiling issue done by the end of September?
Look, to ensure that we have robust economic growth and promote fiscal discipline, the Trump administration believes it's important to raise the debt ceiling as soon as possible. Over the past 2 decades, members of Congress and presidents from both parties have raised the debt ceiling 15 times, and we look forward to working with Congress to ensure the full faith and credit of the United States government.
Sarah.
April.
Thank you.
Since you said my name so politely.
Thank you, Sarah. So
Somewhat sarcastic.
Me being sarcastic? No, never.
Go ahead, April.
All right. Sarah, when it comes to this joke that the president said Friday, you have many organizations, to include police organizations, the NAACP, and the American Citizenship that is upset about this. Could there be an apology from the president, and what does he view as reasonable when he's not joking when it comes to use of force from police?
I would have to ask on that specific question.
But do you think that the president is remorseful for what he said because of the outcry from Friday?
I think the president supports our law enforcement, and he supports the protection of the citizens of this country, and he wants to empower our law enforcement to be able to do their job. I don't think there's anything beyond that. Zeke?
Thanks, Sarah. First, following up on Olivier's question, you mentioned that there's a legal review of this legislation, but the White House has already said that the president will sign it. So what is the nature of that review? Presumably there was some review before putting out that statement.
As with every very particularly complex piece of legislation like this is, there's a legal review, and once we sign that, we'll work through and put more of the details of that process out.
And separately, one more for you. Last month, the president had delivered a warning to Congress a couple of times not to take vacation in August. What is the status of the president's August plans? Does he plan to leave Washington? For how long? And what will he be doing during that time frame?
We'll continue to keep you guys updated on his August schedule as those details are finalized.
Thanks, Sarah. The Coast Guard Commandant says that he won't turn his back on transgender troops, which would seem to preclude adhering to the president's directive on Twitter. Does the White House consider that he's refusing to follow an order?
I haven't heard those comments or had a chance to speak with any about it, but I know that the goal is to work with all of the relevant departments, primarily the Department of Defense, to lawfully implement that new policy.
Sarah, you just told April that you would have to ask the president if an apology would be appropriate. Are you saying you will ask him and get back to us?
No, I said I would have to in order to answer that question.
Yeah, well, could you please?
I'll let you know if I do.
Now, also on General Kelly, you said yesterday that everybody's now reporting to the president through him. Is that an accurate characterization?
Right, like I said, that General Kelly has full authority
So does that
in the
mean
White
nobody
House.
can wander into the White House on their own? Is he going to post
I don't think
somebody
anybody
outside
can
the
wander
Oval
into the
Office?
White House on their own
Excuse me,
without
into the
Secret
Oval
Service
Office, into the
stepping in.
Oval Office? Can his daughter, can his son-in-law, can Steve Bannon wander into the Oval Office? To
I don't
talk
think
to him
anybody just
without
wanders into the Oval Office. Look, this is the White House. He's the President of the United States of America, and there are processes
But it's pretty
and.
informal here normally, right? I mean, people talk to him. They don't wait to get approval to talk to him.
Look, General Kelly is going to work with the entire team as he's been doing over the last couple days. He's done a great job of sitting down and talking to individuals about the needs that they have, the conversations, and putting a structure in place. There's nothing abnormal about that.
Staff talk to the president without the approval of General Kelly.
I don't know that I would say approval is the correct word, but I certainly don't think it's like we're getting permission slips signed. But I do think that there is something to having a structured process in order just to make things run more smoothly at the White House.
Sarah? What is the president's reaction to two opposition leaders being jailed in Venezuela?
Can you say that again?
What is the president's reaction to the two opposition leaders being jailed in Venezuela now after the sanctions from yesterday?
Overnight, the regime of the Venezuelan dictator Maduro detained two leading opposition figures following its outrageous seizure of power through sham elections this weekend. The vice president spoke with Mr. Lopez just last week, and he and Mr. Ledesma are political prisoners held unjustly by the Maduro regime. The United States condemns the actions of the Maduro dictatorship, and we hold Maduro personally responsible for the health and safety of both men and any others seized by his dictatorship.
Is the president already considering increasing the sanctions and perhaps going after the oil exports?
Again, I'm not going to broadcast, as Secretary Mnuchin said yesterday. We'll consider all options and keep you guys updated.
On healthcare, you said earlier that what's keeping the president's agenda from going is Congress and their votes. The president has said he wants to see healthcare done before anything else, and yet that's not the message we've seen from the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, in the last few days. Can you explain the discrepancy between the president and senior Republican leadership on the Hill when it comes to what should be done next?
As we've said before, we can do a lot of different things at one time. We're continuing to focus. We're continuing to try to push a new healthcare system. We know that Obamacare is failing. We know that inaction is simply not okay. We want to continue to make that a priority. We want to work with Congress to do that. We may look for other ways to improve healthcare in the meantime. We're also continuing to focus on tax reform. We've been doing tax reform listening sessions for the last month. We've had countless meetings with members of Congress, other organizations, talking about tax reform, infrastructure. We're going to continue to focus on all of those priorities and move them forward.
Will the president support Congress taking CSR payments out of his hands? There's been some suggestion, again, among senior Republicans that this is appropriate to do given the president's threats to stop these payments. They're saying this should be taken out of the executive branch.
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Because this is something that's being discussed pretty aggressively on Capitol Hill. John Thune has talked about it. Orrin Hatch has talked about it.
I'm happy to get back to you.
Mitch
Got
McConnell,
it.
thanks.
Yep. Peter.
Very quickly on Seth Rich. Does the president believe the predicate of that original Fox News reporting that Seth Rich was responsible for the release of DNC emails to WikiLeaks?
I'm not sure, Peter. Thanks, guys. We've got a small business event coming up shortly, and hopefully you'll all tune in.
His first strike off. Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, she said it was going to be short and sweet, but I think that went on a little longer than expected. But Sarah Huckabee Sanders, guys, back on the stand at the podium. There was some question as to whether or not these briefings would be on camera after Scaramucci left the administration, but now they're back, and so we'll bring them to you guys live as often as we have them, guys. Some tough questions and tough answers today. Let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll bring this to you as much as we have these day-to-day, these White House press briefings, guys. Let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you next time. All right, guys, YouTube, thanks so much for watching, for checking in with us. Today's White House press briefing. We finally got it. It wasn't too, well, it was late. It was a good 20, 25 minutes late. But I thought it was a little fiery. Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
I don't know what the term is because I remember seeing similar characteristics that when O.J. Simpson was doing his thing for parole. I don't know if it was like defiant or something. I don't know what the term is, but the characteristics were so similar. They have a salty response to some of the questions.
Mm-hmm.
And
I do remember that with OJ's thing. We were calling it slightly defiant at first and then getting a little softer. But yeah, I expected a little different. There were some answers that were pretty biting, guys. Let us know what you think in the live chat here on YouTube. We also broadcasted this to Facebook if you want to rewatch it, or you can go back on our stream as well to check in with the events from today. Trying to cover all the latest and greatest breaking stuff and relevant topics and sources. And it was nice to kind of grab a little bit of Secretary of State's Department of State briefing today as well. So I think we jumped around a little bit for today's stream. Thanks again, as always, guys, for watching, and we appreciate you guys being on the stream. As always, you can join us day to day. We start at 11 a.m. and go into the afternoon as much as news is pressing and breaking through the afternoon. So click that button that says subscribe to be part of our channel. Yeah, and you can get those alerts on your phone, so you can bring them up right on your YouTube app or on our app, our Fox 5 DC app, or on our website, fox5dc.com. Well, guys, for now, that's going to be it. We're going to see you another day, so join with us tomorrow for more breaking news. I'm Molly Nevola with intern Amber today. We're happy to be here with you. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, guys. We'll see you on Wednesday. We'll leave you with a beautiful shot of the Capitol Dome, as always, on this gorgeous summer day, the first day of August. Thanks for joining us, guys.